Marvel. Power Mod Master. Chapter 21. Li Jie was immersed in the process of guiding the creation of a dimensional world. This was not just a simple spatial creation. He also had to truly implement the rules Li Jie had already imprinted, using actually existing things. Of course, the current Li Jie did not have that much energy or matter to turn the false, virtual, into reality, real, to assimilate and fill it. So, Li Jie was currently only using a tiny amount of energy and information to form polymers, and based on this, continuously materialize everything within the dimensional world. Therefore, although the dimensional world Li Jie was currently creating looked vast and contained all sorts of things, it actually didn't consume much energy. Because, in essence, the current dimensional world was just a virtual world. Li Jie also didn't plan to create a very large space. After all, he wasn't really trying to create and develop a civilization, but merely for his own convenience. Even game companies can design vast and boundless game worlds. For Li Jie, who possesses design capabilities, it was naturally a piece of cake. In reality, the space he created was only the size of a cube with a side length of 1,000 meters, from a real-world perspective. Li Jie didn't design any wonders or complex terrains, he simply designed a flat land. Sand, snowfields, forests, water bodies, Li Jie didn't design any of them. He could build any desired terrain later. At most, he would let the resources of those regions randomly generate on the land, so that the land wouldn't appear too monotonous. As for the nether or the end, Li Jie stated that he was just a builder player, at most occasionally watching other players' commentary videos. There was no need to delve into things he didn't understand. What Li Jie liked most about Minecraft was its block-based nature and some of its characteristics. There was no need to completely replicate Minecraft. Precisely because Li Jie abandoned the design and materialization of many things, and made some changes according to his own ideas, he didn't spend much time creating the dimensional world. After all, not much time had passed since Li Jie awakened his abilities, and he hadn't deliberately scanned and recorded information about things. Therefore, there wasn't much information about things in his godhead that he could use for materialization. Not to mention that in order to open up the space as quickly as possible, Li Jie only maintained the absorption of redstone energy for his energy absorption ability. Because of this, the professor was able to let his consciousness enter Li Jie's mental consciousness space. When the professor saw him, he had already detected the professor's consciousness. However, at that time, Li Jie was integrating rules into space, so he didn't pay attention to him. As this 1,000-meter-sided space was completely covered by land, this silent yet grand creation had come to an end. Li Jie was about to return his consciousness to his body when he suddenly thought of something. With a thought, various rules once again emerged from space. Oh, no, it was the dimensional world. Some were separated from within, recondensing into a palm-sized grass block. This block was not only a condensation of rules but also the operating system of this world, or rather, the heavenly Tao. When he didn't act personally, this system would operate the world's rules on his behalf. Li Jie waved his hand, integrating the grass block directly into the square sun in the sky. With a thought, his soul left the chaos formed by the Godhead. The Godhead automatically shrank and returned to Li Jie's soul. In the real world, although the X-Men were shocked by the professor's words, they didn't discuss it too much. After all, Li Jie was still lying on the ground. Whether what the professor said was true or not, they could wait until Li Jie regained consciousness to ask him personally. Since it was confirmed that Li Jie was not in any danger, they were relieved. However, just leaving Li Jie lying on the ground wasn't a good idea. They also didn't know when Li Jie would wake up. So, after a discussion, the few of them took Li Jie to their medical room and placed him on a hospital bed. Storm and Phoenix were about to put various monitoring instruments on Li Jie when they saw his eyelids begin to tremble. The next second, Li Jie opened his eyes. God, you're finally awake. We thought something dangerous had happened to you. That's great, Li Jie. Thank goodness you're all right. Storm and Phoenix had been observing Li Jie's condition, so they naturally immediately noticed his awakening. The professor and the two others, who had already walked to the door of the medical room, naturally heard the words of the two who stayed behind to take care of Li Jie. Quick, Scott. Push me back. The professor impatiently urged Cyclops to go back. His excited reaction greatly surprised Cyclops. He had almost never seen the professor react like this. In his impression, the professor had always been calm and wise. Ha! Professor, you're so excited, could it be that you really believe that kid created a world? Even Wolverine couldn't help but tease him. Scott, Logan, you don't have psychic abilities, so you wouldn't know what those things I saw in Li Ji's consciousness space represent. I sensed reality and order, like an alternate world different from the real world. The professor simply explained, his gaze fixed on the medical room. Cyclops swallowed the words he was about to say after seeing the professor's expression. The three quickly came before Li Jie. Li Jie was explaining something to Storm and Phoenix. Yes, that's right. I did create a world. But it's not as exaggerated as you think. I only created a virtual world. To make it completely real, it still needs a lot of energy or matter to fill it. Actually, the usable space right now is only about 1 cubic meter. When my world is big enough, I can invite you to play inside. I've designed many interesting rules within it. The professor and the others, who had approached, happened to hear Li Ji's explanation, and their expressions changed slightly. The professor had an, as expected, expression, his now calm face still showing some contemplation. Cyclops was first startled, then excited. After all, compared to creating a world, his ability flaw was just a small problem. It seemed he could finally get rid of those fooled glasses. Oh, fool. Wolverine's reaction was very direct. Li Jie also saw the professor and the others, but he didn't continue to explain anything. He looked at Cyclops's face and saw his excitement. Li Jie felt a bit embarrassed. After all, he had promised to help Cyclops solve his ability flaw. But he hadn't expected to be forced to create a virtual dimension due to opening up space, thus delaying it for so long. Professor originally wanted to say something more to Li Jie. However, seeing Li Jie focusing on Cyclops, he remembered their initial objective. Anything else could be discussed with Li Jie later. The most important thing now was to see if Li Jie could solve Cyclops's problem. Scott, don't worry. Li Jie's ability is so powerful, he can definitely solve your problem. Phoenix came to Cyclops's side. Whether to cheer him up or herself, she didn't know. I'm fine, Jean. Even if the problem isn't solved, it's nothing. After all, I've been used to it for so many years. Cyclops squeezed Phoenix's hand, comforting her in turn. Wolverine looked at the joined hands of Cyclops and Phoenix, remaining silent, lost in thought. Professor and Storm also watched them quietly. Li Jie jumped off the bed, stopped wasting words, and motioned for Cyclops to lead the way to the training ground. After all, he had been unconscious just now and didn't know the route. The group arrived at the training ground again. Li Jie and Cyclops stood in the center, while the others stood in the corners. Li Jie did not directly design an ability for Cyclops. After all, designing an ability for someone else wasn't a matter of doing whatever he pleased. He still needed to ask for Cyclops's own opinion. Scott, do you have any thoughts on how to solve the flaw in your ability? Or do you have any specific requests? Tell me, so I can help you design it properly. Li Jie asked about Cyclops's requirements, as a good designer must understand the client's needs. Li Jie, I only have one request. Let me be able to take off these glasses. For everything else, you design it as you see fit. I trust you. Cyclops did not make any excessive demands. He chose to trust Li Jie's wisdom. After all, for a genius capable of designing a world, even if most of the credit went to his mutant ability, his intelligence could not be denied. He was looking forward to seeing what kind of ability Li Jie would design for him. Naturally, Li Jie would not disappoint Cyclops's trust. Honestly, Li Jie already had an idea the moment Cyclops asked him to help solve the flaw in his ability. Cyclops's ability is essentially an energy space portal that cannot be closed. As long as the switch for the portal could be controlled, the problem of him being unable to turn off the optic blast would be solved. He only needed to add an energy cycle ability to Cyclops's eyes, allowing him to decide whether the optic energy is launched or returned to the space. However, Li Jie did not want to solve Cyclops's problem so simply. As his first work, Li Jie decided to give Cyclops an epic level upgrade. Cyclops' ability is centered on his eyes, and speaking of eyes, one inevitably thinks of the eye legend. Cyclops' optic space contains so much energy, Ligier couldn't let it go to waste. It's decided. Sharingan. Ligier decided to use the Sharingan as a reference to design a new method for Cyclops to utilize his optic energy. First is Susanoo. This iconic ability of the Sharingan cannot be omitted. However, it would look strange for Cyclops, a Westerner, to use the image of a Japanese samurai. Adapting to the times, he couldn't be too conservative. The optic energy is dark red, and every time Cyclops uses his ability, it causes massive destruction. Doesn't this perfectly match the image of a demon in Western legends? Let's design the image as a bat-winged, horned demon clad in lava armor, holding a longsword and shield, and carrying a longbow. It needs both melee and ranged attacks, and movement, flight capabilities are essential. Oh, and the face should be Cyclops' own. The name will be Demon True Form. I trust other demons won't object. As for the size, naturally, the more energy, the larger the physique. But he can't just unleash the ultimate move without warning, there must be abilities usable at normal size. Let's design an ability where Cyclops can use demon transformation. It possesses everything the demon true form has, but perfectly fits a normal physique. But Cyclops has so much energy, wouldn't it be a waste to only consume some of it when using his ability? Moreover, the demon true form requires sufficient energy to condense. Why not design the demon true form like the Dharma aspect of Buddhas and gods? Furthermore, open up an energy storage space within Cyclops' consciousness space, specifically for storing and using energy to strengthen the demon true form. With the expansion of the space, the strengthening of the demon true form, and the demon transformation. Perhaps, relying on the continuous nourishment from the optic energy dimension, Cyclops might one day completely master the optic energy dimension and become a new dimensional demon god. As for the Sharingan's insight, replication, and genjutsu. Replication. There are no ninjutsu to replicate in this world, so it can be discarded immediately. Genjutsu. Cyclops doesn't seem like the type to handle such delicate work, so it can also be removed. Only the insight ability has the greatest practical use and should be kept. In reality, just these are almost enough. However, Ligier didn't want his work on Cyclops to have major weaknesses. There are no abilities related to the soul yet. Since he has so much energy, the solution should involve energy. Ligier pondered for a moment and thought of Ghost Rider with his flaming skull. Since Ghost Rider's fire can burn souls directly, why shouldn't Cyclops' energy be able to? Then, add the ability of soul burning to the energy controlled by Cyclops. But no matter how powerful an ability is, it's not as good as personal strength. Making Cyclops' soul stronger is the fundamental solution. Following the same logic, the energy controlled by Cyclops should be able to strengthen his soul. As for the evolution of the Sharingan, Ligier did not intend to add this ability to Cyclops' eyes. What he had designed was enough for Cyclops to use gradually. If he wanted other abilities, he could figure out how to develop them himself once his soul was strong enough. After all, the abilities he designed didn't lock out potential changes, preventing Cyclops from developing them himself. Although so much was said above, very little time was actually wasted. Having used energy to strengthen his soul for so long, Ligier's relative mental strength, thinking speed, and learning memory capacity had all been enhanced. Ligier had thought of all this in about 1 minute. He took a new blank card out of his pocket and, instead of starting with an ability light orb, directly manifested and sealed the ability onto the card. Ligier controlled the energy from the red stone already placed inside the dimensional world to converge onto the card. An eye pattern appeared on the card, featuring 3 black tomos slowly rotating within a red pupil. Below it was the description: Sharingan, open energy space, strengthen soul, insight into everything, nurture demon true form, control energy, soul burning, demon transformation. Ligier did not seal much energy into it. After all, his energy reserves had not yet reached the point of energy freedom, and Cyclops certainly wouldn't lack energy. Ligier handed the card to Cyclops. You should know what to do, right? He wanted to confirm that Cyclops remembered how to use the card. Drip blood to claim ownership. Cyclops answered without hesitation. After all, the card was initially meant to solve his problem, so how could Cyclops not listen carefully to Li Ji's explanation? He carefully read the description on the card. These were the abilities he was about to possess, so he naturally needed to understand them clearly. Looking at the eerie Sharingan pattern, Cyclops was a little puzzled, but it still looked pretty good. These eyes are? He asked Li Jie. Sharingan, also known as the eye that reflects the heart, represents the desires within one's heart. Don't you want to solve your eye problem? These eyes are very suitable for you. When you're not using the ability, your eyes won't change. Only when you activate the ability will they transform into this appearance. Of course, if you don't like it, I can remove this transformation for you. Li Jie explained the meaning of Sharingan. No. Li Jie. The eye that reflects the heart. I really like this name, and it looks cool, doesn't it? After learning the meaning of Sharingan, Cyclops was filled with emotion. Wasn't he trying to use the abilities within these eyes to solve his own problems? At this moment, this was his greatest desire. Sharingan, his eyes were very fitting for this name. Looking at the description below the card, the abilities could be listed in a row, but there were some he didn't quite understand. Like demon true form. Could it be borrowing power from a demon? But Li Jie wouldn't dig a pit for him right under the professor's nose, would he? There should be another explanation. It didn't matter if he didn't understand, he was going to fuse these abilities anyway, and he'd know once they were fused. He asked Li Jie to hold the card for him. Without asking Li Jie anything further, Cyclops pulled out a wrapped scalpel from his pocket. Cyclops had taken this from the infirmary earlier, having anticipated needing it. As for why Li Jie didn't just directly bestow the ability upon Cyclops, he could only say that life needed a sense of ritual. Cyclops gently pricked his left index finger. Without hesitation, he dabbed the emerging drop of blood onto the card Li Jie was holding for him. The Sharingan pattern, stained with blood, emitted faint streaks of colorful light, which, mixed with the descriptive text on the card, transformed back into an orb of light. Before Cyclops could lower his finger, he saw the orb of light shoot straight towards his head. He instinctively wanted to dodge, but then remembered how Li Jie had used the card, and immediately suppressed his instincts. This must be a necessary process for the ability to bind with him. So he watched with wide eyes as the orb of light went straight for his glabella, and with a flash of light, it vanished before his eyes. Cyclops unconsciously raised his hand and touched his forehead. Just as he was wondering why there was no reaction, a series of messages began to surface in his mind. Professor, just watch. Scott will be one of my most successful creations, in my true first work. My own designs don't count. While Cyclops was receiving the ability messages, Li Jie had already made his way to the professor and the others in the corner of the training ground. At this moment, Li Jie was like a child eager to show off his treasure to adults. Li Jie, can you tell us how you fixed Scott's flaw? Phoenix was very concerned about Li Jie's solution, as she also needed Li Jie to solve her own problems. Fixing a flaw? No. How could I waste Scott's abilities like that? I discovered that Scott's eyes are connected to a laser energy space. He can't control his eyes simply because he is too weak. And he's never considered, nor been able to, utilize that simply explosive amount of energy. As a designer, I couldn't pass up the opportunity to make him even more perfect. So I designed a complete set of energy utilization abilities for him. Upon hearing Phoenix's question, Li Jie's urge to show off grew even stronger. His words were full of confidence in his design abilities. You'll see, Cyclops' ability fusion is almost complete. Before the professor and the others could ask further questions, Li Jie spoke first, drawing their attention towards Cyclops. Cyclops' body gradually began to glow red, starting as faint wisps, then spreading into patches, until his entire body turned dark red. His clothes also transformed into armor that seemed forged from lava. A pair of demonic horns instantly grew from both sides of his forehead. He looked entirely like a demon made of energy and lava. If Cyclops' face hadn't still been clearly recognizable, the professor and the others wouldn't have believed he was Cyclops. Oh, shit. Oh my god. God. Scott, are you alright? What's going on? Cyclops' transformation immediately startled the professor and the others. Logan even spat out his beloved cigar. Storm covered her mouth with both hands in shock. Phoenix anxiously shouted questions at Cyclops, while only the professor remained calm. Li Jie, what is happening? Has Scott's ability gone completely out of control? Phoenix hadn't received a response from Cyclops. She turned back, grabbed Li Jie's shoulders, stared intently into his eyes, and urgently questioned him. Jean, calm down. Scott isn't out of control. This should be an ability Li Jie designed for him. The professor truly lived up to his title. Instead of asking Li Jie, he immediately used his psychic sense to investigate Cyclops' condition. He didn't detect the chaotic feeling of an ability out of control on Cyclops. Coming back to his senses, Cyclops looked at his current appearance. Sensing the abnormality, he raised his lava-like hand and touched his head. A pair of hard, curved horns appeared in his perception. The armor on his body didn't make him feel heavy or restricted, it felt as if it were naturally a part of him. He clenched his fist, and a burst of explosive power intoxicated him. He had never felt so strong before. Is this demon transformation? What a powerful ability! Cyclops muttered to himself. The ability Li Jie designed far exceeded his imagination. After receiving the information from the ability Light Orb, Cyclops was most shocked by the detailed descriptions of the two abilities, Demon True Form and Demon Transformation. However, Demon True Form required condensing and nurturing within an opened energy space. He hadn't opened an energy space yet, nor had Demon True Form condensed, and he didn't have that much energy to use right now. So, Cyclops used all the energy output from his eyes to activate Demon Transformation, wanting to see the specific manifestation of this ability. The power of transforming into a demon made Cyclops' heart surge with excitement. As for the demon's appearance, Cyclops didn't care, as it was just a transformation ability that he could freely activate and deactivate. Moreover, the information in the light orb also explained Li Jie's reasons for designing it this way. He felt that Li Jie was right, his Cyclops' powers indeed caused immense destruction every time. However, it was uncontrollable before, but now it was controllable. He could finally control the demon in his eyes. Thinking of this, Cyclops unconsciously touched his empty eye sockets. During the transformation just now, the energy had burned away his glasses frame. He could finally open his eyes to the world. Recalling everything from before, the three Tomo in Cyclops' Sharingan eyes began to spin faster. He heard Phoenix's anxious inquiry and, after reacting, quickly retracted the energy from his body, though he didn't transform back. After all, his clothes had already been burned away. He couldn't possibly run around naked in front of them, could he? Jean, don't worry. I'm fine, I was just trying out the ability Li Jie designed for me. Cyclops explained his situation as he walked towards Li Jie and the others. He didn't want Phoenix to upset Li Jie and create a rift between them and Li Jie. He was about to thank Li Jie when a fist suddenly came at his chest from the side. The Sharingan, which had not yet been deactivated, instantly detected the movement. He instinctively raised his hand to block, without much effort, just a slight flick, and he firmly caught the fist. He looked closely and saw that it was a punch from Wolverine. When Cyclops walked over just now, Wolverine, with his beast-like intuition, immediately felt a strong sense of threat from Cyclops. With a testing mentality, he didn't warn Cyclops and launched a surprise attack with a punch. He didn't expect Cyclops to catch his punch with such ease. What are you doing, Logan? The professor noticed Wolverine's small action. Professor, I just wanted to test Scott's current strength. Wolverine, retracting his fist, spread his hands, shrugged his shoulders, and raised an eyebrow. Logan, you seem to have gotten a bit weaker. I didn't use much strength just now. Cyclops made a small gesture, teasing Wolverine for once. Oh wow Scott, you look exactly like a demon from mythology now. Are your eyes like this now? They look really good, very cool. Storm and Phoenix had already come forward to meet Cyclops. Phoenix tentatively touched the armor on Cyclops' body, while Storm examined his eyes. Jean, this is a demon transformation designed for me by Li Jie. It's just an appearance, not a true transformation into a demon. Aurora, these are called Sharingan, also designed for me by Li Jie, representing the desires of the heart. Cyclops introduced the changes to his body and eyes separately. His slightly upturned lips showed his unconcealed joy. Professor, what do you think? Are you satisfied with the image I designed for Scott? Li Jie stood beside the professor's wheelchair, one hand gently resting on the armrest, unable to resist bending down to ask for the professor's opinion. The professor watched the X-Men's interactions and gently pursed his lips. How long had it been since they were this relaxed? The plight of mutants had always kept them worried. It seemed that Li Jie's appearance and his abilities had brought them a great sense of relief. Li Jie, you've done very well. Although Scott never said anything, I know his eyes have always been a thorn in his heart. Thank you very much for helping him solve the problem with his eyes and for designing such a powerful ability for him. The professor's words were full of concern for Cyclops and gratitude for Li Jie, and his gaze softened a little. Haha, Professor, you don't need to thank me. I just wanted to design a perfect work, and Scott happened to have that potential. Li Jie was modest about the professor's thanks, but his beaming smile didn't match humility at all. After chatting with Phoenix and the others for a few sentences, Cyclops walked past them, his slightly glowing face adorned with a brilliant smile, and went straight to Li Jie. Professor. After greeting the professor, Cyclops reined in the smile on his face, becoming serious, and stared intently into Li Jie's eyes. Li Jie, thank you very much for giving me a new life. I have nothing now to express my gratitude to you. If you ever need anything from me in the future, please don't hesitate to ask. Cyclops' serious face was full of earnestness, his words resolute and without a trace of hesitation. Li Jie felt his sincerity but didn't truly take it to heart. After all, what could he not accomplish himself that would require Cyclops' help? He simply wanted to design a good work. But he still accepted Cyclops' thanks. No matter what, his help to Cyclops was genuine. Wolverine, standing nearby, touched his head, looking at Li Jie as if he wanted to say something, but after glancing at the professor, he silently crossed his arms and stood aside. Storm had no problems that needed Li Jie's help to solve, so she just watched Li Jie and Cyclops with a smile. Phoenix, however, was different. She had always hoped to solve her problem of easily losing control of her abilities. After Cyclops thanked him, she impatiently squeezed in beside Cyclops, her hands constantly clenching and unclenching in front of her chest. She tightly pursed her lips, her beautiful eyes looking expectantly at Li Jie. Jean, your situation is a bit special. I need to think about it carefully. Li Jie set the tone for her problem before Phoenix even opened her mouth. The professor had a bad premonition when he heard Li Jie's words. After all, he had once felt the immense power within Phoenix. Li Jie, is there something wrong with Jean? Cyclops was even more puzzled than the professor. Li Jie had easily solved his problem and designed a powerful set of abilities for him. Kid, you're not trying to avoid helping, are you? Wolverine was still as direct as ever. Li Jie, is there some difficulty? Do you want us to help you think of a solution? But some people were clear-headed, like Storm. After Li Jie spoke, Phoenix had been standing silently in place. Could it be that even an Omega-level mutant like Li Jie couldn't help her? Li Jie looked at their reactions, knowing they had misunderstood something. Why are you all so anxious? I never said it couldn't be solved, I just need to carefully consider the specific method. The source of Jean's power is extraordinary. Li Jie's explanation was like a beam of light instantly illuminating Phoenix's dark world, causing the X-Men's hearts to relax. Li Jie, isn't Jean's ability just a mutant power she awakened herself? The professor was the most knowledgeable about her power besides Phoenix herself. He had always believed that Phoenix couldn't control her ability simply because it was too powerful. But hearing Li Jie now, was there some other hidden complication? Professor, how much do you know about Jean's ability? Li Jie countered with a question. Is that not my ability? Phoenix finally couldn't help but speak. Your ability? No. You are merely its host. Li Jie never minded telling the truth. Jean, the energy within you is fundamentally called the Phoenix Force. The Phoenix Force originates from the original universe, born at the beginning of all things. It is chaotic yet undying, eternal yet unpredictable, the child of the universe. It is the embodiment of life and psychic power in the original universe, symbolizing life and emotion. It is the connection point for the spiritual minds of all things existing or yet to exist across the infinite multiverse, the creator and source of psychic power. It is the storage vessel and master of the life and emotional energy of all future generations throughout the entire infinite multiverse. And you are the host of one of the countless fragments of the Phoenix Force scattered across the multiverse after it shattered. Li Jie stopped here to catch his breath, also giving them time to digest this information. Even this fragment on Jean, if its power is fully unleashed, can easily destroy a planet. Without waiting for their reaction, Li Jie added another sentence. At this, even the professor was speechless. He had managed to keep something this formidable sealed in Jean's mind all this time. He didn't know if it was his luck. The X-Men were now looking at each other in silence. How do you know this kind of information? How do I know if what you're saying is true? Phoenix bit her lip, hoping Li Jie would give a different answer. Ah, you ask how I know. That's because I designed an ability for myself to scan all things and record information. Li Jie honestly revealed another one of his abilities. This statement was both true and false. It was true that his ability had indeed scanned some information, though not so comprehensively. The false part was that he already knew this information beforehand. The few people present were originally anticipating Li Jie's answer just like Phoenix, but they didn't expect him to casually mention another ability. They were momentarily stunned. Someone who could design powers was truly domineering. However, with this, they had no reason to doubt Li Jie's explanation. After all, mutants were inherently unreasonable beings. Any kind of ability could awaken. Li Jie, since the Phoenix Force is so powerful, can you help Jean control it? Cyclops looked at Li Jie with anticipation. If anyone had the most faith in Li Jie right now, it was undoubtedly him. Of course I can. However, I cannot directly solve the problem for Jean. I can only help maximize her potential to control the Phoenix Force. Li Jie's answer softened Phoenix's stern face, though she still clenched her hands tightly. Li Jie, the Phoenix Force within Jean has been sealed by me for a long time. Could this be the cause of her current problems? The professor frowned, a hint of self-reproach on his face. Professor, you are correct. A second personality has emerged in Jean's mind, bearing all her pain and darkness. The second personality's control over the Phoenix Force far surpasses Jean's, and its psychic power is also stronger than Jean herself. It is already close to breaking your seal. This is also why I cannot directly help Jean control the Phoenix Force. After all, the second personality is also a part of Jean. I can't just destroy the second personality, right? After hearing Li Jie's explanation, the professor frowned so hard you could squash a fly between his brows. He was deeply remorseful that he hadn't discovered these issues sooner, otherwise Jean wouldn't have developed a second personality. He hadn't realized his seal would cause Jean such great trouble, and he looked at Phoenix with deep self-reproach and apology. Storm and the others couldn't help with anything now, so they could only stay quiet and not disturb Li Jie's thoughts. No, Professor, I don't blame you. If it weren't for you, I don't know how many things I would have done that I'd regret. Phoenix did not blame the professor for the seal, instead, she felt gratitude. After all, she knew how terrifying the Phoenix Force within her was, and now, hearing Li Jie's introduction and learning the Phoenix Force's origins, she was even more terrified. Jean, I need to ask for your opinion. Do you want me to help you remove your second personality? Li Jie's words continued. No, Li Jie, certainly not. Can you help me control the Phoenix Force while also preserving my second personality? Phoenix recalled Li Jie's introduction. Her second personality bore all her pain and darkness. She couldn't imagine how painful and helpless it must be. Furthermore, since the second personality was a part of her, how could she feel justified in destroying it after knowing it had helped her bear so much? Although she knew her selfish request would create a huge difficulty for Li Jie, she still couldn't bear to eliminate her second personality. Of course I can. As a designer, I won't refuse a client's request, unless I can't do it, or I don't want to. Li Jie's confident reply made Phoenix sigh in relief. Hurry up and tell us your method, kid. Stop stalling. Wolverine had always held unique feelings for Phoenix, and being habitually short-tempered, he couldn't help but urge Li Jie on. Don't rush, Logan. Trust that Li Jie will provide Jean with a satisfactory solution. Storm patted Wolverine's shoulder, telling him not to worry. Although Cyclops found Wolverine's impatience strange, he attributed it to Wolverine's concern for a teammate. After glancing at Wolverine, Cyclops focused his attention on Li Jie once more. I've thought of a very good method, but I don't know if you can accept it. Doing this will have serious consequences. Of course, it will definitely solve your problem, won't cause you any harm, and will meet your requirements. Li Jie ignored them, continuing to keep them in suspense. Phoenix took a deep breath. Li Jie, tell me. This is my own choice, and I can accept any consequences. Li Jie didn't dither this time. I'm going to split you into two people. Li Jie's words surprised everyone present. What do you mean? Are you going to make Jean schizophrenic? Isn't that no change at all? Jean, I didn't mean you're schizophrenic, that's not what I meant. Cyclops stammered incoherently. He unconsciously touched his devil's horn while watching Phoenix's expression. His comical appearance made Phoenix unable to help but curl her lips even at such a time. Ha! Scott, you're quite a joker. I mean it literally. I'm going to separate Jean's second personality and turn her into an independent individual. Jean, you will have a sister. Li Jie no longer wanted to tease them and directly stated the answer. Li Jie, do you mean you're going to design a body for Jean's second personality? Do you want me to give you some input? I know all of Jean's measurements, you know Tilda. Storm understood Li Jie's meaning and even teased him, finding his old-fashioned demeanor amusing. Two people, a sister, another Jean. Wolverine's eyes lit up. He didn't know what he was thinking, and he even glanced at Cyclops. Professor was also invigorated. Why hadn't he thought of that? If you can't control it, separate it. Jean doesn't want to remove her second personality, but she can't let it continue to grow in her mind. Separating her is the best choice. However, to separate her, a body is needed. He wondered how Li Jie planned to do it. Li Jie, do you need my help? I think I can still be of assistance in the mental domain. Professor didn't directly ask Li Jie for the specific solution, but merely offered to help. After all, in his opinion, although Li Jie's ability was powerful, his mental abilities wouldn't reach a significant level in a short time. Even the most powerful abilities require time to practice, let alone mental abilities that require precise operation. Of course, Professor. I need you to help Jean suppress her second personality for a while later. Li Jie did not refuse the professor's kind offer. His mental power was indeed not yet strong enough, and he didn't want to spend time on the use of mental abilities. And Aurora, I don't think I need your input. I just need to design a clone ability for Jean. After dealing with Storm, Li Jie didn't want to waste any more time with the X-Men. He was ready to design the ability directly. Speaking of which, he had been brought to the training ground by them as soon as he arrived today and hadn't met any of the students in the academy yet. He didn't want to put on an act anymore. He raised his right hand, palm up, and guided the red stone energy from the dimension world with his mind. Li Jie's various thoughts converged, and with energy as the carrier, a ball of light instantly appeared in his palm. This time he didn't slow down, and in just a few seconds, the light ball successfully condensed. Li Jie didn't want to design any patterns or use cards anymore, so he simply handed the light ball directly to Phoenix. Where's the card? Phoenix, who had been full of anticipation, looked at the light ball in Li Jie's hand with some confusion. Her movement of reaching for the scalpel Cyclops was handing her stopped. Didn't I just say? Sealing it in a card is just for convenience of carrying, it doesn't mean it can't be given directly to others without a card. You just press the light ball to your glabella. Li Jie looked surprised, raising an eyebrow. Then Cyclops's eyelids twitched at the words. Oh tilde I just wanted to test if there were any problems with the sealed card I designed. It's the first time using it, after all, so please understand. You're a grown man, it was just a small cut. You wouldn't mind, would you? Li Jie casually mentioned that he had used Cyclops for an experiment. The others' eyelids twitched, and their mouths twitched. At this moment, they fully understood Li Jie's mischievous streak. Of course not. What could Cyclops say? Li Jie had solved his eye problem and designed a powerful ability for him. Of course, he would just pretend not to have heard Li Jie treating him as an experimental subject. After hearing Li Jie's explanation, Phoenix eagerly took the light ball from Li Ji's hand. She had expected the light ball to have no texture, but when she held it, Phoenix clearly felt its presence. The light ball indeed had no weight, it was light and soft, like jelly made of clouds. However, she keenly observed that the energy of the light ball was slowly dissipating. She immediately understood why Li Jie wanted to seal the light ball in a card. Without the seal on the card, the light ball would disappear before long, it indeed needed some container for storage. Phoenix no longer hesitated, filled with hope and anticipation for the additional sister Li Jie had mentioned. Under the gaze of the X-Men, she squeezed the light ball and pressed it directly to her glabella. As for why Phoenix wasn't repulsed by suddenly having an extra sister. It can only be said that among 10 mutants, you couldn't find 2 with complete families. Mutants are a group that generally lacks familial affection. For Phoenix, being able to solve her out-of-control ability problem and gain a real sister was something she couldn't be happier about. As Phoenix was receiving the information, Professor began to inquire about Li Ji's specific solution. Li Jie, can you tell us your method now? You also need to tell me if you need my help. Li Jie did not refuse. As I just said, I designed a clone ability for Jean. She can freely decide whether to create an energy clone or a physical clone. Jean can decide the energy and abilities of the clone herself. In other words, she can control the strength of the clone. Li Jie first explained the clone ability, then continued. Moreover, I also incorporated the yin-yang theory of the Eastern country into the clone ability. Jean and her clone, one will manage the creation of the Phoenix Force, and the other will manage its destruction. They will balance the Phoenix Force within Jean, ensuring she never loses control again. On the contrary, the two of them will continuously grow stronger under the interplay of yin and yang. The X-Men were all amazed by Li Ji's imagination and creativity. This clone ability design not only solved the problem of Phoenix losing control of her powers but also strengthened her abilities. However, Professor keenly noticed the problem within it. Li Jie, you've only been talking about the ability of the clone, this doesn't solve Jean's second personality problem. Li Jie was not surprised that Professor could discover this issue, and he explained. Professor, this is where I need your help. The clone ability I designed essentially allows a person to separate certain aspects of their personality as the clone's consciousness, making the clone equivalent to a self with a different personality. But Jean already possesses a second personality, which is a powerful manifestation of character, and Jean herself cannot separate her. Li Jie introduced the principle of the clone ability in more detail. Seeing this, does it feel familiar? That's right, Li Jie designed this ability based on the Shadow Clone Jutsu from the Legend of Eyes. He simply changed separating personality traits to separating the whole personality, truly turning one person into two. So, you need me to help Jean separate her second personality and introduce it into her clone. Professor immediately understood Li Ji's meaning. This kind of spiritual problem indeed required his help for Phoenix. Furthermore, with his help, the probability of accidents could be reduced. Professor. Phoenix had finished receiving the information, she had just carefully digested and understood the message Li Jie left in the light orb. Although she was pleasantly surprised by the power of the clone ability designed by Li Jie. However, figuring out how to separate her second personality truly stumped her. After all, Li Jie was the one who told her about the second personality's existence, she couldn't even sense its presence herself. In that case, how could she separate it and introduce it into her clone? The Q&A between Li Jie and Professor immediately caught Phoenix's attention. Professor's words instantly ignited hope in her heart, but at the same time, she felt some shame. Professor had helped her so much, and now she still needed his effort to solve her own problems, causing various emotions to surface in her heart. But she quickly calmed herself down. She decided she wouldn't cause Professor any more trouble in the future. Professor dedicated his life to the mutants, from now on, she would protect everything they had. Professor, I apologize for the trouble. I am ready. Let me and the other me be separated from now on. Phoenix composed herself and began requesting Professor's help. Jean, don't forget to inject less energy into the clone. This, younger sister, of yours is not someone with a good temper. However, you can also treat her like a child and educate her. Li Jie reminded Phoenix at the appropriate time. Li Jie, thank you very much for putting so much thought into designing the clone ability for me, and thank you for the reminder. She has endured so much for me, I won't blame her for having a bad temper. I will be a good older sister. Phoenix's gaze softened, and Cyclops, who still looked like a demon beside her, couldn't help but comfort her. Don't worry, Jean. Your younger sister is my younger sister, and I will help you educate her properly. That's right. We will all help you. Storm also expressed her support. She's just a little girl. With so many of us, are we afraid she'll cause trouble? Wolverine's words were rough, but the sentiment was right. Thank you, everyone. I will educate her well. Professor, I'm starting. Phoenix thanked them and prepared to activate the clone ability. It was as natural as eating and drinking, she successfully activated the ability. Instead of splitting off a physical clone directly, she took Li Jie's advice and only split off a solidified energy clone. It only had the energy intensity of an ordinary person, and no abilities were transferred. Phoenix decided to wait until this younger sister matured mentally and could interact with them normally before gradually sharing the energy of the Phoenix Force with her. After all, without her interference, the Phoenix Force within her wouldn't lose control so easily. Phoenix merely had a thought, and to the observers, streams of energy surged from Phoenix's body, condensing in front of her into a figure identical to herself. There was no hint of illusion throughout the figure, even clothes were present, making it impossible to tell it was an energy clone. However, this figure was expressionless, eyes tightly closed, and motionless, like a wax figure of Phoenix. Phoenix looked at Professor. Help me, Professor. Professor already knew what to do. The moment Phoenix spoke, he extended his consciousness into Phoenix's mind. One standing and one sitting, both closed their eyes and concentrated their minds. Inside Phoenix's mind, Professor's consciousness and hers condensed into their respective images. Without any conversation, Professor directly led Phoenix to the seal inside her mind. A barrier composed of psychic energy tightly wrapped around a mass of volatile energy. Occasionally, some energy brushing against the barrier would cause waves of fluctuation. A wisp of energy extended out from the barrier. Phoenix knew it was guided by her clone ability. Without destroying the barrier, it could establish energy flow with the Phoenix Force inside and, by extension, guide the second personality within. Phoenix had to admire the power of the clone ability designed by Li Jie. Phoenix shared the information about this ability with Professor, believing it would provide him with some assistance. Professor was indeed pleasantly surprised. He originally thought he would need to simultaneously stabilize the seal and guide Phoenix's second personality. This immediately cut his trouble by more than half. He only needed to fully suppress Phoenix's second personality and guide her onto the clone. Professor's consciousness followed the energy into the barrier. After resisting the instinctive impact of the Phoenix Force, he carefully scanned the psychic fluctuations inside. Under these circumstances, Professor immediately discovered the presence of a consciousness. A wave of emotions filled with tyranny and malice began to spread toward him relentlessly. Destruction, annihilation, arrogance, lust, all kinds of dark thoughts surrounded the consciousness, like a hell demon king proclaiming his evil to the world. This pure malice made Professor shudder. He dared not imagine what kind of destruction would be inflicted upon the world if Phoenix's body were ever dominated by this consciousness. Fortunately, they could discover and solve this problem in advance now. The activation of the clone ability suppressed the control of the Phoenix Force by all other consciousnesses except for Phoenix's. Without the bonus provided by the Phoenix Force, Dark Phoenix, though very powerful to Phoenix herself, could not withstand Professor's mighty telepathic ability. Under Phoenix's anxious gaze, Professor used his mental power to wrap his psychic energy around the constantly struggling Dark Phoenix consciousness. Following the direction of the energy flow, he brought her out from within the barrier. Phoenix looked at Dark Phoenix, who was still radiating malice despite being controlled by Professor. Before they had even formally interacted, she sensed the pure, unadulterated malice of this sister. Professor didn't give her much time for reflection, signaling for her to return to the real world. As soon as the two opened their eyes, they fixed their gaze on the clone. Cyclops and the others, who were about to speak, involuntarily shifted their attention as well when they saw the pair's reaction. As the Dark Phoenix consciousness settled in, the clone's face began to show emotional fluctuations, and its eyelids constantly twitched. Seemingly having adapted to the current body, Dark Phoenix suddenly opened her eyes. Perhaps influenced by the Dark Phoenix consciousness, the clone's face underwent noticeable changes. Delicate black eyeshadow appeared around her eyes, and her fiery red lips turned blackish purple. Her eyes were slightly upturned at the corners, wicked and enchanting, and the gaze she directed at them was filled with malice and killing intent. When she looked at Wolverine, she carried a strong sense of desire, and her lips curled into a snarl, like a savage wolf spotting its beloved prey. Wolverine also saw her gaze and couldn't help but return a challenging look. His beast-like intuition told him he had been targeted by Dark Phoenix. Cyclops and Storm had already moved closer, surrounding Dark Phoenix along with Wolverine and Phoenix. Li Jie didn't join the commotion. Instead, he honestly pushed Professor's wheelchair and stood a few meters away, adopting an expression of watching a show. Professor, do you think Dark Phoenix can accept her current situation? I don't think she's easy to get along with. Li Jie chatted with Professor while keeping an eye on the X-Men's situation. Dark Phoenix. She is full of malice, the name certainly fits. I noticed when I drew her out just now that her mind is not mature. She's like a child with the mindset of a beast, which is why she carries such pure malice. You must understand that a child's thoughts are the purest, neither good nor evil, they can only distinguish between good and evil after their minds mature. I believe that with our guidance, she can certainly become a kind, good girl. Professor had already discovered Dark Phoenix's immaturity. As a master of telepathic abilities, he was confident he could teach her well. On the other side, Phoenix looked at Dark Phoenix, who shared her exact appearance but whose aura was filled with wicked charm. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. Although she had decided from the start to treat Dark Phoenix as her own biological sister. But having never had experience interacting with siblings, she felt completely helpless when facing Dark Phoenix. Since Phoenix didn't speak, the others didn't know what to say either. After all, Dark Phoenix was originally a part of Phoenix, so it was most appropriate for her to speak first. Perhaps sensing that the X-Men bore her no malice, Dark Phoenix merely glanced at them and then ignored them. She originally wanted to attack Phoenix, the person she found utterly repulsive, to retrieve her power. But a sense of restriction suddenly appeared in her heart. She sensed the dominance Phoenix held over her body. She bared her teeth and let out a low growl at Phoenix, glared intensely at her, and then gave up the idea of causing trouble. However, since she had the mind of a child, her various thoughts came and went quickly, and her desires and cravings were never hidden. Dark Phoenix quickly set her sights on Wolverine. She was originally born from Phoenix's various dark emotions and painful memories, essentially serving as the vessel for Phoenix's desires. And Phoenix once held a woman's instinctive desire for a powerful man regarding Wolverine. However, the presence of her official boyfriend, Cyclops, allowed her to control her desires and prevent her from acting on them. Naturally, Dark Phoenix now also possessed this desire for Wolverine, and her pure mindset held no hidden thoughts. Upon encountering Wolverine at such a close distance, the craving in her heart was instantly drawn out. Ignoring everyone else present, Dark Phoenix walked straight up to Wolverine, staring intently into his eyes. Phoenix saw that Dark Phoenix had ignored her and gone directly to Wolverine. She unconsciously let out a sigh of relief, but inwardly she felt a bit strange. Why among all the people here did Dark Phoenix go straight for Wolverine? Wolverine stared at Dark Phoenix in front of him. Her unconcealed desire instantly captivated him, and he felt his heart rate quicken. What are you looking at? Dark Phoenix didn't answer him, instead using direct action to express her thoughts. She raised her hand and touched Wolverine's cheek, and before he could react, her bewitching blackish-purple lips pressed straight onto his. Whoa, Jean. Your sister is really wild. Storm watched Dark Phoenix go straight for Wolverine like that, sticking close to him, and couldn't help but tease the astonished Phoenix beside her. As Cyclops watched Dark Phoenix, who shared Phoenix's face, interact with Wolverine, he subconsciously looked at Phoenix's expression. He couldn't quite describe what he felt, only that he instinctively felt a huge boulder lift from his heart. He had long been aware of the subtle tension between Phoenix and Wolverine. But since Phoenix hadn't actually done anything, he was unwilling to bring it up and jeopardize his relationship with her. That was why he usually clashed with Wolverine and always kept his guard up around him. But now, looking at Dark Phoenix sticking to Wolverine, he felt that any caution between them was pointless. After all, Li Jie had previously stated that Dark Phoenix's body could exist permanently as a real entity. Right now, she was just an energy body, and that was only as a precaution. Once Dark Phoenix's mind matured a bit, she could become a truly independent individual. However, looking at Dark Phoenix's face, Cyclops felt there was still one problem that needed solving. Jean, have you thought of a name for your sister? Phoenix, who was secretly observing Cyclops's mood nearby, was startled when she suddenly heard his question. Cassie. Let's call her Cassie. I hope she can break free from the darkness of the past and embrace a new life. The past was the past, and Phoenix hoped Dark Phoenix could join her in moving past it and welcoming a new life. Li Jie, who had been watching the excitement with the professor for a while, was starting to feel like he didn't want to stay any longer. Professor, it seems our Dark Phoenix is getting along well with the X-Men. I won't interfere with your efforts to educate her any further. I haven't properly met everyone in the academy yet, so I'll go up and have a look around first. Li Jie directly stated his thoughts. The professor didn't keep him either. After all, the issues with Cyclops and Phoenix had been resolved, only Dark Phoenix still required their attention. Li Jie had been pulled in to help as soon as he arrived, so it was indeed inappropriate to trouble him with the subsequent matters. After a brief explanation of his accommodation arrangements, Li Jie was allowed to go up by himself. Li Jie already knew the way, and as for access permissions, they had been given to him on the way in. No longer concerned with how the professor and the others would educate Dark Phoenix, Li Jie quickly left the underground base and wandered around the academy. Watching the students' antics, he had no desire to join in. He just kept watching them use all sorts of strange abilities, as if watching a circus act. The students naturally saw Li Jie walking around. However, many students had previously seen Li Jie being brought into the academy by the X-Men, knowing he was also a fellow mutant. So they didn't bother Li Jie, it was just that they weren't very familiar with him, so no one actively approached him. After observing for a while, Li Jie didn't see any powerful abilities, mostly ones with little combat effectiveness. They might look interesting, but they had little ability to resist when facing various human firearms. There were still too few strong mutants. Even now, only the older generation of the Professor, the X-Men, and Magneto's Brotherhood could stand on their own. Walking to a deserted patch of grass, Li Jie lay down directly. The warm sunlight fell on him, slowly being absorbed into his godhead, gradually strengthening the sugar cube-sized red stone. In fact, when materializing the red stone, Li Jie wanted it to quickly absorb enough energy directly from the cosmic origin to become a 1 cubic meter complete body. However, he found that while simply absorbing energy was possible, getting quick results was not. Actually, Li Jie had discovered a problem in his previous few attempts to materialize abilities. The abilities he designed seemed unable to exceed his own understanding. The abilities he designed before were basically realized by forcibly using his own power. But when it came to things related to rules, he could only achieve a basic foundation, and then had to let it gradually perfect itself. He only discovered this after opening up the dimensional space. In less than a day, the various rules within his dimension became increasingly natural through continuous operation, wearing away much of the deliberateness he had imbued during the design phase. Li Jie felt like a nascent heavenly Tao, omnipotent in a sense, but relying entirely on brute force. He still lacked a deep understanding of rules and a lot of knowledge. Now, the abilities he designed were like a seed, a foundation, needing to be developed and strengthened by those who received them. Should he go to the Ancient One Master of Kamar Taj to learn some magic? After all, many powerful spells require the use of rules. As for whether the Ancient One Master would harm him, he had grown up safely and now possessed powerful awakened abilities, yet she had never sought him out. This fully indicated that she wouldn't do anything to him. Moreover, she would probably welcome someone as uniquely talented as him wanting to learn magic, right? Perhaps she would forget about that unreliable Doctor Strange and directly pass on the title of Sorcerer Supreme to him, who clearly had a more promising future. However, he wasn't in a hurry to learn magic right now. The most practical thing was to make good use of his designed information scanning and recording abilities. Perhaps by receiving a vast amount of knowledge, he wouldn't need those magical insights and could directly enter the Tao through knowledge. After all, in this world, technology, magic, and gods have no obvious boundaries. As long as he had enough knowledge, coupled with his abilities, what could he not accomplish? Perhaps when he gives his designed creations to others in the future, he should add an information reception ability to them. Then, transmit and record the knowledge they use into his godhead. This way, many people would simultaneously help him record and develop knowledge, using the wisdom of all beings to nourish himself. Thinking of this, Li Ji's heart stirred, recalling the myths and legends of his previous life. The three pure ones, who widely spread the Tao, seemed to have done something similar. And the ancestor of 10,000 Buddhas, Tathagata Buddha, also had the act of spreading Buddhism to the East. In this world, there are also so many dimensional demon gods spreading their power everywhere. It seems I should also promote the traditional virtue of widely disseminating power. His abilities are naturally suited for this. Speaking of the infinity stones, should he also collect and study them? As a rule aggregate formed at the beginning of the universe, if he could thoroughly understand the rules on them, then his shortcomings in the area of rules could be completely eliminated. However, he didn't need to directly possess these stones, he only needed to leave an information scanning and recording ability on them and connect it to his godhead. What he wanted was the knowledge of the rules on them. His abilities could do what the stones could do, and holding the stones would at most be using them as an energy source. Now he already had the red stone that could be continuously replicated, and it had no flaws like not being usable outside the universe. Holding the infinity stones would be of no use. Having understood these principles, Li Jie had decided to try and make contact with the Avengers as much as possible. After all, as the protagonists of this world, the Infinity Stones would naturally gravitate towards them. However, there was no news of the Avengers yet, and Iron Man seemed to have only appeared not long ago. As for Thor and Hulk, there wasn't even a shadow of them. He had seen that his friend Peter was almost at the age to receive that destined bite. Now, with the existence of mutants, it seems he has arrived in one of the countless parallel universes of the Marvel Universe. In this world full of various dangers, countless people must crave power. Let him satisfy them. Li Jie was envisioning a beautiful future. Unconsciously, he pulled out his hands from under his head and clenched his fists, vigorously waving them in front of him. The corners of his mouth were almost reaching his ears. Hee, what are you doing? A clear voice suddenly came from beside Li Ji's ear. His waving hands froze, and the upward curve of his mouth became somewhat distorted. Now, Li Jie felt like a joker who had suddenly been caught in the act of his secret, childish behavior. He lowered his hands, put away his silly smile, and forced himself to calm down. Li Jie straightened up from the grass, not standing up completely, but turning his head to look in the direction of the voice. A girl about his age was standing not far to his right. Behind her was a boy of similar age. Li Jie recognized them at a glance. After all, they had appeared quite a few times in movies in his previous life. However, he didn't show it, instead pretending to look at them with a puzzled expression. Hello, I'm Kitty Pryde. You can call me Kitty or Shadowcat. Hello, I'm Bobby Drake. Just call me Bobby. My codename is Iceman. The two introduced themselves openly, their gazes fixed on Li Jie. Hello, I'm Li Jie. You can call me Li. As for a codename, I hadn't thought of one yet. But seeing that you both have codenames, I'll have to give it some serious thought. Li Jie didn't hesitate and introduced himself as well. This is how direct connections between mutants are. Hearing them mention their codenames when introducing themselves, he couldn't be out of place. It seemed he really needed to think of one. His abilities could be described as omnipotent, and the reason for his transmigration was the tribulation lightning of a tribulation transcending Grandmaster. It seemed he had a fated connection with immortals. Since that's the case, it perfectly decided his codename. Immortal. My codename will be Immortal from now on. Iceman and Shadowcat had already sat down beside Li Jie on their own accord, as if Li Jie was very familiar with them. Immortal. Like the immortals in mysterious Eastern legends. Shadowcat was clearly a natural at making friends and asked very naturally. Iceman, on the other hand, was not as outgoing as Shadowcat, his personality was more reserved. He simply watched Li Jie and Shadowcat with a smile. Kitty, yes, the codename I chose for myself, Immortal, is because that is the goal I have set for myself. Immortal and indestructible, controlling creation and destruction, reversing life and death, transcending the world. Li Jie did not hide his ambitions, his words filled with longing for immortals. Isn't this just like God? Shadowcat clearly hadn't expected Li Jie to set such a goal for himself, her eyes wide as she spoke. Iceman also opened his mouth in surprise. So, choosing a codename also had the intention of setting a goal for oneself. Was his codename, Iceman, a bit too ordinary? Li, are your abilities very powerful? Can you tell us? Iceman began to feel curious about Li Jie's abilities. After all, to set such a grand goal for himself, his abilities must be very powerful, right? Shadowcat also thought of this and looked at Li Jie with equal curiosity. My abilities are design and materialization. I can design anything. Abilities can also be designed, and even given to others. Li Jie didn't mind letting more people know about his abilities. As for the professor's thoughts, that wasn't important. If no one knew about his abilities, how was he supposed to spread power? Was he supposed to eagerly go and give power to others? Of course, he would spread his information, letting people come to him to seek power. Regardless of whether the people who came were good or evil, his goal of spreading power could be achieved. Designing abilities can be given to others. As Li Jie expected, two shocked faces appeared before him. He suddenly felt that seeing other people's shocked expressions every time he introduced his abilities was also a very interesting thing. Now, Li Jie felt inexplicably joyful, and he thought he could give them some benefits. Thinking of this, he decided to ask for their opinions. That's right, I can indeed do it, but I don't just give it to anyone. Kitty, Bobby, you are the first mutant peers I've met. Do you have any abilities you want? Neither of them was stupid, how could they not understand such a clear hint? Li, are you serious? Shadowcat confirmed impatiently. Her bright face was almost pressed against Li Jie's, her eyes wide open. Iceman didn't speak, but he also leaned his body closer, staring intently at him. Of course it's true, but it's agreed that I can only give you the foundation of an ability. What it can become in the future depends on how you develop it. Li Jie said calmly. After receiving Li Jie's confirmation, they, on the contrary, didn't know what to do. Accept or not accept. If they accept, what ability should they ask for? If they don't accept, will they lose this opportunity forever? Being young, receiving so much news at once, their brains didn't know how to process it. Seeing their bewildered and helpless faces, Li Jie decided to choose an ability for them himself. Their current abilities don't have any obvious flaws, and he doesn't have any particularly good ideas for now, so he'll just give each of them a practical ability. Since you don't have any ideas, how about this? I'll give each of you a telekinesis ability. You should like this kind of versatile ability. Yes, Li Jie finally decided to give them telekinesis. This versatile ability is convenient for anything. Yes, that's it. We trust your choice, and we'll definitely like it. Do we need to do anything? Should we lie down? Iceman and Shadowcat's brains hadn't yet calmed down from the shock and surprise, their words were a bit incoherent. Hee, you don't need to do anything. Just like this, don't move. Seeing their reactions, Li Jie found it amusing. Without waiting for them to react, he pressed an ability light orb onto each of their foreheads. Watching them obediently remain still, Li Jie couldn't help but sigh in his heart, they truly are naive. If he wanted to harm them, they would have no chance to resist at all. The professor's education truly turned them into hothouse flowers, naive and cute, with no ability to resist risks. A few days had passed since Li Jie, Shadowcat, and Iceman last met. Although Li Jie hoped they would spread information about him everywhere to accelerate his plan of spreading power. However, after adapting to telekinesis and subconsciously using it, their intelligence once again took the high ground. They were just naive, not stupid, of course, they knew what Li Jie's ability represented. So after that, they agreed not to tell anyone else about Li Jie's ability and asked Li Jie to hide his power. Li Jie was noncommittal, even without their spreading, his abilities couldn't be kept secret. These past few days, the two of them seemed to have agreed to stick with Li Jie, fending off anyone curious about his abilities. After the professor and the others learned that Li Jie had given them telekinetic abilities, they only asked Li Jie not to casually give abilities to others anymore. As for anything else, they said nothing. Perhaps the professor had seen Li Jie's restless heart, and they had no way to constantly monitor him. When the X-Men talked to him, they intentionally or unintentionally reminded him to learn to carefully discern the character of others. Although they didn't explicitly say it, how could Li Jie not know their purpose? Seeing that they couldn't stop him from giving power to others, they wanted him to give power to people of good character as much as possible. Li Jie, of course, complied gracefully, stating that he would not give power to those with poor character. As for what he would actually do, Li Jie could only say that nothing is absolute. However, Li Jie hadn't seen Phoenix these past few days, and Cyclops and Wolverine appeared very rarely. They should be educating Dark Phoenix Kathy. But no matter how Li Jie looked at it, it seemed like Wolverine was accompanying his Dark Phoenix, and Cyclops was accompanying his Phoenix. Although curious about Dark Phoenix's situation, Li Jie didn't ask anything. Anyway, they would eventually have to let Dark Phoenix appear outside, so what was he rushing for? But he also wondered how the professor and the others would explain Dark Phoenix's identity, as there must be many eyes on the academy. How could a person who looked exactly like Phoenix not arouse curiosity? It's also worth mentioning that Li Jie had met Hank McCoy, Beast Hank, one of the few scientists and researchers among the mutants. Needless to say, Li Jie naturally helped Beast solve his problem of not being able to transform back into human form. Based on his abilities, Li Jie also made some enhanced modifications, allowing him to better fit his codename, Beast. As for what exactly, Li Jie could only say that he hoped no one would provoke him in the future, or they would know what a true beast was. Beast, who was helped by Li Jie's ability, was extremely grateful to him. At that time, a big man like him almost cried when he saw himself truly transform back into a human appearance. He had suffered so much hardship since childhood because of his appearance. Moreover, almost no one in the academy had a stranger appearance than him. This had always been a thorn in his heart. Now he could finally get rid of all this. After learning that Li Jie was collecting knowledge and information, Beast unreservedly shared his research results with him. The professor and the others also kept their promise and opened up all the knowledge they could collect to Li Jie. Even the mutant gene research data they collected was not hidden. Li Jie also didn't stand on ceremony with them, directly scanning and recording all this information into his divinity. Indeed, with the addition of this knowledge and information, Li Jie felt as if his abilities had some skeletal support. No longer relying solely on brute force for miracles, even the manifested abilities on his body were smoother to use, and energy consumption was reduced. The manifestation of real space within the dimensional world and the growth of the red stone both accelerated. It's worth mentioning that Li Jie not only recorded this knowledge but also scanned information about everything he could access in the academy. This way, he could condense objects of the same material within the dimensional world. Of course, while the materials were the same, their properties were different from those in the real world. As the manifestation completes, his dimensional world will become a real game world. Mystique recently took an interest in Li Jie. Originally, she was just pretending to be a student in the academy as usual, observing the changes within the academy. But in the past few days, she had noticed something amiss. Just like Li Jie, she also noticed that the X-Men were appearing much less frequently. Moreover, she had secretly seen the professor and the others frequently interacting with Li Jie. This made her notice Li Jie, who was a student. To find out what the X-Men were doing, she initially wanted to pretend to be another X-Man and try to extract information when they were alone. However, she found that they seemed to be busy with something important and were almost never alone. So she had to target Li Jie. Through conversations with other students, she already knew that Li Jie was a new student. She also knew about the professor and the others welcoming Li Jie into the academy together. She also learned that the professors and their unusual behavior began after Li Jie arrived. Mystique felt she had found the key person. She decided to test Li Jie. One time, after Li Jie had sent off Shadowcat and Iceman, He was alone on the grass, basking in the sun. She knew her chance had come. To be honest, when Mystique, transformed into Shadowcat, appeared before him, Li Jie had already discovered her identity. After all, his various abilities had been strengthening these past few days. Abilities like information scanning and recording, which would be crucial for him to compensate for his deficiencies in the future, were precisely what he focused on strengthening. Even if Mystique transformed perfectly, there would still be subtle differences. In front of Li Jie, who was now comparable to an essence analyzer, her identity was as clear as day. However, he didn't expose her. Perhaps this was a good opportunity to use her to expand his influence. Li Jie decided to directly reveal some information to her. Kitty, is something wrong? Could it be that the telekinesis I gave you last time didn't meet your requirements, and you want a better ability? Mystique's unspoken probing suddenly caught in her throat. Her heart pounded, and she almost couldn't maintain the smile on her face. What does he mean? What does he mean by, given telekinesis? What does he mean by, better ability? Does he mean what I think he means? Nothing. I really like the telekinesis you gave me. I just felt I should thank you again. The telekinesis you gave is simply too useful. I still have some things to do, so I'll be leaving now. Forcing herself to maintain her expression and following the information Li Jie revealed, Mystique casually made up an excuse. Then, using the excuse of having something to do, she turned and left. Regardless of whether she would be suspected, Mystique left with decisive swiftness. If the information Li Jie revealed was true, then he was too important to mutants. She needed to contact Magneto as soon as possible. With such abilities, Li Jie should have a better stage. Eric, I have an important piece of intelligence to tell you. I found a student inside Charles's academy who can change the current situation of us mutants. He can give superpowers to others. You know what this means, Eric, you need to come over here. Mystique found an empty corner and secretly contacted Magneto. As soon as the call connected, she urgently poured out all the information she knew to Magneto. Magneto, who had just been contacted by Mystique, almost didn't hear what she was saying clearly. There was nothing she could do. Mystique still hadn't calmed her heartbeat yet. The ability Li Jie revealed was beyond the imagination of even her, an experienced, older generation mutant. She couldn't wait for Magneto to come and take Li Jie away. The Brotherhood of Mutants needed such talent. Raven, calm down. What exactly is going on? What do you mean by giving others superpowers? Explain it properly to me. Although Mystique's voice was frantic, Magneto still keenly grasped the main point. Giving superpowers to others. Although he believed Mystique wouldn't lie to him, he still wanted to know more information. This kind of ability was exactly what he had always dreamed of. Why have mutants always been at a disadvantage in their confrontation with humans? Isn't it because the number of mutants is limited, and powerful mutants are even rarer? If Mystique's intelligence was correct, then their opportunity to change the status quo was right before their eyes. Such a mutant student should be allowed to contribute his strength to the cause of making mutants greater. He absolutely would not allow Professor X to turn a student capable of changing the destiny of mutants into someone as naive as him. Alright, Eric, you know I've been inside Charles's academy these past few days. The X-Men have been acting very strangely these past few days, often nowhere to be seen, and when they are visible, they are frequently interacting with a newly arrived student. I realized they started acting strangely only after this new student arrived. So I found an opportunity to test him, and unexpectedly, he directly revealed that he could give others superpowers, and had already given one student telekinesis. You know, I can only secretly interact with him a little. Trying to quietly take him away from Charles is impossible. Eric, only you can take him away. His name is Li Jie. Although she tried hard to suppress her excited emotions, Mystique couldn't hide her urgency when she spoke. Li Jie. Raven, I'm giving you a task. Watch him and wait for me to arrive. Magneto had always been a man of action. After confirming Li Jie's abilities from Mystique, he immediately decided to go and bring him back to his brotherhood. Disconnecting the call with Mystique, Magneto picked up his helmet from the side and gently placed it on his head. He instructed his subordinates to guard the base, then walked straight out, using magnetic fields to control himself as he flew toward the academy. He didn't bring anyone this time. Too many people might slow down their evacuation when trying to take Li Jie. Inside the academy, Mystique finally calmed her excited feelings after receiving Magneto's definite answer. She felt she should test Li Jie's views on changing the mutant status quo once more. After all, it was unlikely that someone who could grant power to others possessed no power themselves. Even if they couldn't take him away, she needed to plant the idea of changing the mutant status quo in his heart, so he might actively use his strength to do something. After sorting out her mood, Mystique once again transformed into Shadowcat. When she arrived at the spot where Li Jie was sunbathing, Li Jie was still maintaining his posture, quietly closing his eyes and absorbing the sun's energy. Sensing Mystique's return, Li Jie was not surprised. It was well known that Mystique was Magneto's intelligence officer. Having discovered someone like him in the academy, she was bound to tell Magneto. Li Jie decided to have some fun with Mystique. Hi, Li Jie. I want to chat with you. Some things have been confusing me, and I want to ask for your opinion. Mystique wasted no time and stated her intentions directly, as Magneto would be arriving soon. Li Jie opened his eyes, looked at Mystique, offered no objection, and nodded, signaling her to continue. Li Jie, do you think we mutants and humans can truly coexist peacefully? I heard that many of our mutant compatriots have suffered persecution from humans, yet the professor and the others keep telling us to live in peace with humans. I also heard there is a brotherhood of mutants that has always been fighting against humans for the sake of mutants. Li Jie, who do you think is right? Li Jie did not interrupt Mystique, he already knew the purpose of her words. She wanted him to join the side of the mutants who opposed humans. How could that be possible? He wouldn't join any side. Kitty, I didn't realize you were such a sentimental person. Can't you figure out such a simple principle? Of course, both sides are half right. They are both too extreme, it's practically like playing house. Li Jie didn't spare the professor or Magneto any face, directly describing their operational stances as playing house. Ah, playing house. Mystique hadn't expected them to appear this way in Li Jie's eyes. Before she could press further, Li Jie continued. What else could they be doing if not playing house? Why must we fight humans to the death? Can mutants not survive without humans? We are now called mutants, we are no longer human, so why keep dwelling on human attitudes? Li Jie's string of questions stumped Mystique. That's right. Why? Why must mutants care about human attitudes? We are mutants. Then, Li Jie, what do you think mutants should do? Mystique, who had never pondered these principles, subconsciously wanted to know Li Jie's thoughts. Kitty, you actually care about these questions. Isn't it simple? Establish a mutant nation. With so many mutants possessing all sorts of abilities, surely they can't all be people who only know how to fight and kill. There are quite a few abilities that can be used for construction, right? Think about it, a magical nation built using mutant abilities, like a world from mythology. Then, let powerful mutants like the professor and his group deter the nations that have always targeted mutants. As long as we develop, who would dare casually target a country entirely made up of mutants? Li Jie generously spoke of his vision, this was his true intention. Mystique was subconsciously drawn in by the mutant nation Li Jie described. A country for mutants. She had never imagined that mutants could establish their own country. She had only ever followed Magneto, constantly fighting against the persecution of mutants by humans. Constantly repeating the same actions. The mutant nation Li Jie spoke of, one that humans wouldn't dare casually confront, was a world she had never even dreamed of. However, she was fundamentally a resolute person, and she quickly snapped out of the fantasy. Just as she was about to say something more, the professor's voice came from behind her. Raven, welcome back. It turned out the professor had been keeping an eye on Li Jie's situation the whole time. When Mystique first approached Li Jie, he hadn't noticed anything amiss. But when she approached Li Jie again, the professor noticed the extra Shadowcat. He didn't need to think hard, an identical Shadowcat was enough to tell him who the visitor was. Mystique, whom he had always treated like a sister. The professor absolutely could not accept Li Jie joining the Brotherhood of Mutants, as that would allow Magneto to inflict immense harm on humanity. Furthermore, Li Jie would become known to many people, putting him in a dangerous situation. Calling the X-Men, the professor led them straight to Li Jie. Professor, were you calling me? I'm Kitty, not Raven. Mystique clearly wasn't ready to admit her identity and was still trying to argue. HMPH. If you're Kitty, then who am I? Another Shadowcat walked out from behind the professor and his group, glaring fiercely at Mystique. All right, Charles, you caught me. Seeing that she was completely exposed, Mystique stopped hiding. A blue ripple swept across her skin, and she finally reverted to her original appearance. Blue skin, bright red hair, yellow pupils, and a body covered in fine scales. Li Jie watched Mystique's transformation up close and couldn't help but marvel at her ability. After all, Mystique was now covered in natural skin, with no trace of the clothing she wore when she was transformed into Shadowcat. It's also worth mentioning that Mystique has a truly excellent figure. Combined with her unique appearance, she possesses a strange allure. Coupled with her ability to change her appearance at will, she truly deserves to be the woman every man dreams of. Activating his information scanning and recording ability at full power, Li Jie copied Mystique's ability. Excellent. This will greatly reduce the consumption needed when designing transformation-type abilities in the future. Mystique had originally wanted to see Li Jie's surprised expression, but Li Jie merely looked at her calmly. Moreover, she would never have guessed that Li Jie had casually copied her ability. Did you figure it out a long time ago? Mystique couldn't help but ask Li Jie. Of course. A good designer must collect as much information as possible and observe the details. How could I not possess such an ability? Mystique suddenly felt like a joker, having been fooled by a mere student like Li Jie. Alright, Raven, you want to take Li Jie to the Brotherhood of Mutants, but that's impossible. And Eric. Did you call him here? The professor didn't let Mystique continue speaking, he immediately stated her purpose, even guessing that she had notified Magneto. It could only be said that the professor was too familiar with them. At that moment, a voice came from the sky. Charles, look at you, you're still so naive. Wearing his exclusive helmet and a cool cape, Magneto slowly descended from the sky. Li Jie hadn't expected Magneto to arrive here so soon after Mystique notified him. It seemed he had rushed over non-stop at the fastest possible speed. Should he even thank Magneto for valuing him so highly? Eric, this is not where you belong. Ignoring Magneto's taunt, the professor sternly warned him. You are Li Jie. Come with me, child. Your power is unparalleled, and it shouldn't be wasted here. I can offer you a better stage. Mutants need you, we all need you. You will become the mutants' savior. Disregarding the professor's words, Magneto fixed his authoritative gaze directly on Li Jie's eyes. He used his passionate, charismatic words to invite Li Jie to join them. Sir, I think you need to get their agreement first. Li Jie was not some truly foolish, hot-blooded youth, how could he be swayed by a few words of praise from Magneto? Furthermore, he didn't need to join either side. Eric, you cannot take Li Jie away. Where he goes is up to him. Cyclops, who was pushing the professor's wheelchair, stepped out from behind the professor, wearing a pair of sunglasses for disguise. Phoenix was not here, she was likely still educating Dark Phoenix. Wolverine hadn't come either. Since Magneto might show up, he didn't want to be manipulated like a toy by him. The professor had only brought 3 X-Men, Cyclops, Storm, and Beast. They weren't worried about being unable to deal with Magneto, Cyclops was the source of their confidence. In the past few days, they had fully understood the power of the ability Li Jie designed for him. Do you have a say here? With a wave of Magneto's hand, some metal buried underground burst through the earth and shot straight toward Cyclops. What surprised Magneto was that Cyclops neither dodged nor fired his optic blast, but simply stood there quietly. He certainly didn't intend to actually kill Cyclops, he just wanted to teach him a lesson. Just as he was considering whether to slightly divert the attack, a change occurred on Cyclops's body. He raised one hand, and a dark red square energy shield suddenly appeared in his grasp, completely protecting him. As soon as the metal touched the shield, it began to glow red, then immediately ignited and melted into a puddle of liquid. Magneto was startled. He immediately realized this was Li Jie's doing and decided he wanted to test the strength of this ability. Taking advantage of the situation, he intensified his control over the magnetic field, pulling more metal from the earth and gathering it into a long metal dragon. Pointing sharply at Cyclops, the long metal dragon surged forward with a violent momentum. Seeing this, Cyclops instead recalled the shield. He also wanted to test exactly how powerful his current strength was. He communicated with the demon true form that had successfully condensed in the gestation space of his mind. Following his mental command, a figure seemingly composed of molten rock gradually materialized around him. A dark red energy construct, an upper body humanoid skeleton about 3 meters tall with curved horns on its head, firmly protected him in the center. As Cyclops raised his hand, the skeleton followed the movement, instantly crushing the long metal dragon, as easily as crumbling a biscuit. The remaining metal fragments that struck the skeleton instantly turned into molten iron, not harming Cyclops in the slightest. Cyclops withstood Magneto's attack, his body merely trembling slightly, feeling quite at ease. This made him feel full of confidence. His demon true form was not yet fully developed. If it were fully developed in the future and continuously strengthened, how powerful would his demon true form be? No longer passively waiting for Magneto's attack, he decided to try out his own offensive methods. With a grip of his bony hand, a great sword, also dark red, appeared in his grasp, its energy burning like flames. With a thought, Cyclops swung the great sword powerfully towards Magneto. A crescent-shaped sword chi, accompanied by a whistling wind, slashed towards Magneto. Magneto, surprised by Cyclops's unexpected move and the sudden appearance of the skeletal frame, could only form a barrier of metal around himself to block as much as possible. Soon, seeing that the metal barrier couldn't hold, he had to flash to the side. The sword chi was diagonal and covered a relatively large area. Magneto, almost grazed, had to roll on the ground to avoid injury. However, his previously dashing cape was now missing a section, making him look somewhat disheveled. Seeing Magneto, who had always suppressed him, now with little metal to control and being forced into such a pathetic state by him, Cyclops immediately seized the opportunity. Before Magneto had time to control more metal, he closed in on him with a few large strides. His empty bony hand retracted its energy, and he scooped up Magneto's body from the ground. Magneto, who had just regained his senses, felt a sudden lightness and tightness, and his vision swayed. When his vision returned to normal, he found himself firmly grasped in the palm of the bony hand. Cyclops's face, with an uncontrollable upward curve of his lips, was close to his. Eric, it seems I still have a say here. Magneto's face darkened, and he narrowed his eyes at Cyclops. Glasses kid, thank Li Jie for the abilities he gave you. He didn't say anything about being careless or not having much metal to control. Storm pushed the professor's wheelchair to their side, with Beast and Shadowcat following closely. And Li Jie. He didn't move at all. He wasn't afraid of being accidentally injured. Mystique simply sat beside Li Jie, leisurely watching what they were going to do. I say, Kitty, why aren't you running? Li Jie looked at Mystique, who showed no sign of being the defeated party, and couldn't help but tease her. Oh tilde handsome boy, what do you think I should do? Why don't you capture me? What kind of person was Mystique? Her eyes curved upwards, and she smiled lightly, leaning her upper body towards Li Jie, bringing her hands together as if bound and directly presenting them to Li Jie. The unintentional charm she exuded made Li Jie, a virgin in both his lives, uncontrollably skip a heartbeat. Cough, cough. Well, the professor and the others will catch you. Li Jie's expression was somewhat unnatural. Hee hee. Mystique noticed Li Jie's unnaturalness and felt a surge of delight. It seemed she was still very charming. Just as she was about to continue teasing Li Jie wouldn't have it. He didn't want to make a fool of himself later. Professor, please capture this woman impersonating Kitty. The professor, who was saying something to Magneto, heard Li Jie's request. Raven still loves to joke with people, the professor said with a smile to Magneto. HMPH. Raven's charm has never disappointed me. Magneto, who had been put down and was constantly paying attention to Li Jie, naturally saw Li Jie's reaction. Li Jie and Raven, come with us to the conference room. We can have a good chat there. Calling out to them, the professor led the group towards the conference room. Magneto looked back at Li Jie, then followed without a word. Li Jie knew that what they were going to discuss was definitely about him, so he didn't decline. Ignoring the smiling Mystique, he directly flew up using telekinesis, slowly following the professor and the others. Li Jie suddenly flying up made Mystique raise an eyebrow, but she wasn't surprised. As she had said before, someone who could grant abilities to others must have considerable power themselves. Swaying with a cat-like gait, Mystique also followed. Arriving at the conference room, everyone took their seats. The professor spoke first. Everyone understands how powerful Li Jie's abilities are. Eric, Raven, now that you both know this, what do you intend to do? Li Jie watched as the professor gave him a reassuring look. Charles, I've always disliked your indecisive nature. Now that we have a powerful fellow mutant like Li Jie, who can change the current situation for mutants, do you still want to drag him into your childish peace games? He needs a better stage. Magneto's tone was direct and forceful. Mystique, standing nearby, said with a grin. That's right, Charles. Perhaps Li Jie would prefer our Brotherhood of Mutants. She even winked at Li Jie as she spoke. Cyclops frowned tightly, about to retort, but Storm pulled his arm, gesturing for him to look at Li Jie. Beast and Shadowcat, who had been silent, also looked over. Li Jie wore an expression as if watching a play, showing no reaction. Raven, right. I remember I've already made it clear that I find problems with both of your sides, and I won't join either. The reason I've joined the Academy now is just to better integrate into the mutant community. It doesn't mean I've joined the X-Men. And I think even less of your Brotherhood of Mutants. Although Li Jie explicitly stated he wouldn't join the X-Men, which disappointed the professor and the others. However, he also said he wouldn't join the Brotherhood of Mutants. That was enough. After all, they had discovered his strong independence when they first met Li Jie. Nevertheless, they still needed to ascertain Li Jie's thoughts on the future of mutants. So, Li Jie, do you have any good ideas for the future of mutants? The professor looked directly into Li Jie's eyes, taking advantage of Magneto's presence today to find out what Li Jie, who had shown genius since childhood, had in mind. Establish a nation. The only way out for mutants is to establish their own nation. With their own country and their own territory, they can develop their own civilization. Instead of compromising or hiding in human society as they do now, living such humble lives. Li Jie's words were very blunt, directly laying out the current situation of mutants. Mystique already knew what Li Jie was going to say before he even opened his mouth. Therefore, she was not particularly shocked. After all, Li Jie had already told her his idea beforehand. Just as she expected, Li Jie brought up the idea of establishing a mutant nation. Establish a nation. But the others were not as calm as Mystique. Every one of them gaped with wide eyes. Among them, Magneto's reaction was the most intense. He clenched his fist abruptly, stood up immediately, and stared intently at Li Jie, his eyes filled with the joy and appreciation of seeing a kindred spirit. Li Jie, your idea is excellent. I have also thought about establishing a nation belonging to mutants. However, there is one major problem I have never found a solution for. We do not have enough vast land. You must realize that all the land in this world already has a master. Magneto's words surprised Li Jie. He hadn't expected that Magneto had also entertained the idea of establishing a nation. But considering Magneto's consistent ideology of mutant supremacy, it seemed understandable that he would have such an idea. However, Magneto's words just now seemed to imply something. Not enough land. All land has a master. And establishing a mutant nation requires sufficient land. Eric, are you suggesting seizing territory? Li Jie spoke whatever came to mind, directly voicing what he was thinking. Of course, Li Jie, that's exactly what we should do. We mutants are stronger and more perfect than humans. Shouldn't we be more suitable to become the masters of this world than they are? Although I have had this idea before, I didn't have enough power. But now, you, Li Jie, you are the power I have always sought. Magneto spread his arms, like a monarch embracing the world, his words ringing powerfully, full of emotion, and highly infectious. Even though Li Jie knew Magneto was saying this to win him over, he couldn't deny that Magneto truly was acting for the sake of mutants. No, Eric. You cannot do this. This will only provoke war between mutants and humans. We cannot destroy the hard-won peace we have now. Li Jie. I hope you can use your power to maintain peace. You are still a child, and you shouldn't get involved in these matters too early. Professor X clearly could not agree with Magneto's idea of seizing territory, and he was also very afraid that Li Jie would be seduced by Magneto and actually join the Brotherhood of Mutants. With Li Jie's abilities, it wouldn't take long for their power to grow strong enough to threaten the entire world. He dared not imagine what kind of destruction this would bring to the world. The few others in the conference room were deeply stirred by the idea of establishing a mutant nation, but they dared not voice their opinions. Having always followed Professor X's arrangements, they had never imagined that events capable of overturning the world would be initiated by them. At this moment, they didn't even dare to breathe loudly. They realized that Li Jie's idea might completely change the destiny of mutants. They were both excited and nervous, all waiting for Li Jie's answer. Seeing their intense gazes fixed on him, along with their tense yet expectant expressions, Li Jie felt inexplicably amused. Seizing territory seemed to be Magneto's idea, right? Did I ever say that was what I intended? Eric, Professor X, I think you've misunderstood something. I only said I wanted to establish a nation, but I didn't say I wanted to seize territory from humans. What are we? We are mutants. Why should we use the methods of ordinary people to establish a nation? Li Jie looked around, drawing their attention to himself, and slowly posed a question. While the others were still thinking, Mystique recalled her conversation with Li Jie, and her eyes suddenly lit up. Li Jie, are you suggesting we use our mutant abilities? Mystique no longer stayed silent, eager to know if her guess was correct. Oh, I didn't expect you to remember what I said, Raven. It is exactly as you think. What I have always wanted is a true mutant nation, not an imitation of the human world. Seeing the confusion in Professor X and the others regarding Mystique's words, Li Jie continued. You must know that in ancient times, many of us mutants could be considered part of the divine race. As the divine race, shouldn't we have our own divine kingdom? Li Jie's words instantly gripped their hearts. What kind of wild fantasy was this? Without waiting for them to speak, Li Jie decided he didn't want to discuss this topic any further. He decided to go all out. Professor X, you saw my world, right? What do you say about me opening up another world? Li Jie immediately killed the previous line of questioning, opened up a new direction, and looked at Professor X with a grin. Magneto, Mystique, and Shadowcat showed some confusion. But several of the X-Men's eyes lit up. They all knew about the incident at the training field last time, even Beast had learned about it through conversations with others. Li Jie, didn't you say your world needed to be materialized slowly? And isn't your world entirely your own? Li Jie's words immediately brought back Professor X's memory of the magnificent scene of divine creation he had witnessed in Li Jie's consciousness space. Professor X, there is a reason why my world materializes slowly. The rules within it are all designed by me and require time to be perfected. Furthermore, only this current world is completely my own. It is independent of the real world. If I design another world similar to reality, without designing complex rules, it will simply be an alternate dimension attached to the real world. With the real world as a foundation, the speed at which this world can be opened up won't be slow at all. As a person with high intelligence, Professor X easily understood Li Jie's meaning. It's like companies. One is built from scratch, and the other is supported by a parent company. Even if the newly established company has good prospects, it won't develop as fast as the one supported by the parent company. Magneto and the others listened as Li Jie spoke casually about sophisticated concepts like world, rules, and dimensions. Although they vaguely understood what Li Jie meant, they still felt it was incredible. Could mutants truly be the divine race? In their impression, the most powerful mutants were only like Magneto. Things like opening up a world and designing rules were feats only true deities could accomplish. They had never imagined that a mutant could possess such power. Magneto's eager gaze was fixed on Li Jie's face. As the leader of a faction, and someone who had a lifelong love-hate relationship with the professor, he was also a man of considerable intellect. Even without receiving an explanation, the reaction of the professor and the others confirmed the truthfulness of Li Jie's words. Li Jie, it seems I still underestimated your power. You are truly the undisputed savior of the mutants. However, could you allow me to see the reason for your confidence? For such an important matter that could determine the fate of the mutants, no matter how excited Magneto was, he needed to see genuine, undeniable proof. This was an excellent quality that a qualified leader should possess. Li Jie didn't mind Magneto's concerns, he also wanted to give them peace of mind. After all, even if he created the world, they would need to build it up, and he didn't want to be an all-purpose nanny. Professor, there's one thing I haven't told you. My world has actually been fully materialized. You must know, my red stone is no joke. All that energy was used to perfect my world. Li Jie looked at the professor's suddenly relaxed expression and told him more good news. He used telekinesis to float in the air, scanning the surroundings. Everyone present looked up at him, their eyes filled with anticipation. Everyone, I will bring you into my world shortly. However, the rules inside are somewhat special, so please don't panic regardless of what happens once we enter. Li Jie gave them a warning beforehand, lest they start shouting and screaming later. Immediately, with a thought, he used his item retrieval storage ability. A strange fluctuation swept over the crowd, and the conference room instantly became empty. Professor, I heard that old guy who likes playing with metal is here. Is he causing trouble? Where did everyone go? Wolverine, who had originally been in the underground base accompanying the little punk girl Cassie. Thinking that Magneto, the person who always restrained him, must have been taught a lesson. He couldn't resist wanting to come and laugh at him. After properly comforting Cassie, he greeted Phoenix and rushed impatiently to the conference room. Unexpectedly, there was no one here. Looking around and unable to figure out why, Wolverine could only secretly regret not seeing Magneto's miserable state. Thinking of Cassie's fiery passion, he stopped worrying about it and quickly walked toward the base. The professor and the others only felt a flicker before their eyes, as if they had passed through a layer of distorted light, and then their vision suddenly brightened. A vividly colored world, appearing as if a painter had carefully and evenly applied paint, materialized before them. The ground was flat and open, the various flowers and plants distinctly colored, overflowing with the breath of life. The trees were straight and blocky, with dense foliage, growing sparsely among the flowers and grass. There were also animals like cows, sheep, pigs, and horses walking leisurely, occasionally lowering their heads to graze on the grass. Pure white clouds floated overhead, and a bright, gentle sun emitted a warm glow. However, all these things looked angular and blocky, seemingly composed entirely of cubes. Just then, Shadowcat suddenly let out a cry of surprise. Oh my God! God! Why have I become like this? The professor and the others immediately looked toward Shadowcat. As soon as they moved, they quickly noticed that something was also wrong with themselves and the others. Were they perhaps a bit square? When Shadowcat's figure entered their sight, they instantly understood the changes in their own bodies. They saw a figure with square hands, square feet, and a square head, a person seemingly composed entirely of blocks, constantly stretching their limbs there. She kept touching herself repeatedly, running and jumping while shouting loudly. Shadowcat's appearance could still be clearly discerned on her face. They immediately recalled Li Jie's earlier warning, the rules in this world were somewhat special. Considering what they had just seen, coupled with the changes to their bodies, it seemed that everything in this world was composed of blocks. Li Jie, this is. The professor raised his square hand, looking at the equally square Li Jie. Magneto did not speak, even the changes to his body only surprised him for a moment. He and the others looked around, examining the details of this world, while also paying attention to the conversation between Li Jie and the professor. This is the fundamental rule I designed for this world, blockification of all things. Don't worry. Our changes can be reversed. This was also Li Jie's first time entering his world. Previously, he had only entered using his consciousness. Entering now with his physical body, the feeling of having a square body was quite wondrous. Right, Professor, I've also added many wondrous rules, or rather characteristics, to this world. I think there's one characteristic you definitely need to try. Looking at the professor, who was still sitting in a blocky wheelchair even after turning into a block person, Li Jie felt he should help him. Li Ji's words not only attracted the professor but also drew the attention of everyone else. The fact that Li Jie could create a world already left them speechless. Now, seeing that he implied this world had many wondrous aspects, their curiosity was instantly piqued. Originally, as the master of this world, Li Jie could control everything within it at will. However, he felt that taking shortcuts for everything would remove a lot of fun from life. He decided to take them to properly experience the wonders of this world. Kitty, stop studying the grass over there, I'm taking you to do something fun. Li Jie led Kitty to a blocky oak tree, and the others followed curiously. They watched as Li Jie raised his right hand and gently tapped the tree trunk, causing some cracks to instantly appear on it. With a soft sound, a small block appeared where the tree trunk had been, quietly floating and rotating. Miraculously, the oak tree, missing a section of its trunk, still stood motionless there. This is. Shadowcat widened her eyes, looking at Li Jie in surprise. Things in this world can all be collected like this. Li Jie smiled, his hands still moving, and casually explained. Magneto became interested, copying Li Ji's movements, and started tapping on a tree. Cyclops pushed the professor's wheelchair, following Storm and Beast, and moved closer to Li Jie. Li Jie kept working, only stopping after collecting enough wood. Without hesitation, he used his mind to open the interface, and immediately used the wood to craft a workbench. What the others saw was those rotating, suspended blocks directly entering Li Ji's body. Then, without any visible process, Li Jie pulled out a 1 cubic meter workbench from seemingly nowhere. All of this was filled with wondrous magic, enticing them to explore. Huh! Magneto, who was mimicking Li Jie by punching a tree trunk, suddenly cried out in surprise. He started repeatedly taking out a 1 cubic meter wooden block, then punching it to break it, and finally putting it away again. Li Jie watched his movements and knew that he had discovered the existence of the inventory and interface panel. I incorporated many game design elements into this world. That is the inventory space and interface panel that everyone who enters this world possesses. Li Jie took the opportunity to explain to the professor and the others. The others who had also witnessed Magneto's actions, except for the professor, began to follow suit, finding a tree to try it out. Shadowcat was the most enthusiastic about collecting wood, she wanted to know what other fun things this world held. Professor, wait a moment. I'll collect some more stone, it will only take a minute. Li Jie walked over to the professor and placed the workbench he had just put away back down. The professor just smiled and nodded, watching Li Ji's actions with curiosity. Quickly crafting a few wooden pickaxes with the remaining wood, Li Jie started digging into the ground right in front of the professor. In no time at all, Li Jie dug down to stone and, without delay, collected it directly. Perhaps because he was the master of the world, his luck was good enough that he even found some coal within the stone. Using the dirt blocks he had just dug up to fill the space beneath his feet, Li Jie quickly returned to the surface. Wasting no time, he placed the scaled-down stone blocks onto the workbench. With a soft chime, a scaled-down stone furnace appeared on the workbench. Li Jie picked up the furnace and placed it directly next to the workbench. Taking this opportunity, Li Jie checked on the others. Perhaps his previous actions had reminded them, as they were all excitedly engaged in mining. Several pits immediately appeared on the previously flat ground. Li Jie paid no mind, treating it as simply adding some underground space to his world. Professor, do you prefer beef, mutton, or pork? Li Jie asked the professor what kind of meat he liked, preparing to go collect some. I assume those who frequently play Minecraft already know what he intends to do. That's right. Li Jie planned to use the properties of the food from Minecraft, which he had also retained, to eliminate the negative effects of the professor's disability. As for whether it would work, it was already within his world, and had been temporarily assimilated by its rules. If Li Jie said it was so, then it had to be. Oh, you want me to try the food from this world? Beef then. I happen to be hungry. The professor merely thought Li Jie wanted him to sample the local cuisine, and he was actually quite curious about the taste of the block-shaped animals here. Then wait a moment, I'll go collect some. Having received the professor's answer, Li Jie began searching for cows. On the flat ground, Li Jie easily spotted a few cows walking leisurely. Walking over quickly, Li Jie decided against slow attacks. He directly enveloped the cows in his psychic power and forcefully compressed them inward. Several plumes of smoke drifted up, leaving only a few blocks of beef floating in the air not far above the ground. With a hook of his hand, the blocks of beef came to rest in Li Jie's hand, still maintaining their scaled-down appearance. Using his psychic power to float towards the professor, Li Jie felt speechless at himself. Why had he forgotten about his own psychic power just now? The abilities he had designed weren't meant to just sit there and gather dust. It seemed he needed to properly get used to utilizing his abilities more often in the future. Returning to the professor's side, Li Jie placed the beef into the stone furnace, added coal, and began the cooking process. Before long, the aroma of beef filled the air, and the cooked beef blocks were ready. Li Jie picked up a piece of beef the size of a face and handed it to the professor, who took it and examined it carefully. The roasted beef looked crispy on the outside and tender on the inside, with a perfect caramelized brown color that made it even more appetizing. Despite the lack of seasoning, the beef's aroma was intensely rich, radiating a captivating fragrance. However, its block-like composition made the beef look less like a real object. Holding it, the professor felt no stickiness, nor the scorching heat of food fresh from the oven, only a perfectly balanced warmth and softness. In short, the professor felt that the beef was like an exquisite model, separated from the outside world by a layer. Li Jie was already savoring a piece of beef, watching the professor's actions closely. In this world, Li Jie had specially designed a rule where objects were mutually independent to achieve the magical feeling of a game. This ensured that everything possessed the sense of cleanliness and refinement usually found only in animation. Professor, try it. It tastes great, and it has some miraculous effects too. Li Jie urged him with a smile, anticipating the moment the professor would stand up. The professor nodded, took a small bite of the beef, and the savory flavor instantly spread through his mouth. The meat was tender, juicy, and the texture was excellent. The professor's eyes lit up, and he couldn't help but speed up his chewing. Just then, the others who were busy mining were attracted by the aroma of the beef, stopping their work and gathering around. Wow, it smells so good. Li Jie, do you have any more? Shadowcat looked eagerly at the beef in Li Jie's hand. Li Jie smiled slightly and took out the extra pieces to share with them. Magneto took the beef Li Jie handed him, examined it carefully, and couldn't help but praise it. Li Jie, this world is really great. It has a magical feel to it. The deliciousness of the beef caused the professor to finish the entire piece without realizing it. Suddenly, the professor felt a slight sensation in his legs. He widened his eyes in surprise, tried wiggling his toes, and they actually moved. Li Jie, my legs. I can feel them. Even someone is composed as the professor became excited. Professor, that's the miraculous effect. You can try standing up directly. Li Jie already knew this would happen, so he wasn't surprised, he simply told the professor to try standing up. The professor took a deep breath, braced his hands on the armrests of his wheelchair, and slowly exerted force to stand up. Although his block legs were still trembling slightly, they genuinely supported his body. Seeing this, everyone let out cries of astonishment. That's incredible, Li Jie, it's practically a miracle. The professor tried walking a few steps in place, a clear smile beaming on his block face. Magneto watched the professor pacing back and forth, and couldn't help but recall the days when they fought together for mutants in their youth. Back then, he didn't despise humans as much as he did now, and the professor still had a full head of hair, and his legs weren't paralyzed. They were inseparable then, fighting against his enemy, the powerful mutant, Black King Sebastian Shaw. To defeat the formidable Black King, they searched everywhere for mutant compatriots hidden in human society. It was during this process that they learned about the humility and caution with which mutants lived to survive in human society. It wasn't until on that beach, when the Black King, absorbing nuclear energy, made humans realize the danger of mutants, and he, pulling a nuclear submarine from the sea, showed them the power of mutants. Those officers who launched missiles without hesitation, and that agent who secretly sniped from behind, all laid bare humanity's malice towards mutants. That time, he not only accidentally caused the professor's paralysis but also completely abandoned the extravagant hope of peaceful coexistence with humans. Speaking of which, the Professor's X-Men and his Brotherhood of Mutants both took shape around that time. Through decades of trials and tribulations, they have always upheld their respective ideals. Between the two sides, it has always been occasional cooperation, but mostly confrontation. One is a peace lover, the other a terrorist. Together they supported the mutants, living space. Unexpectedly, decades later, both he and the professor are old and frail, yet they still have the opportunity to see a bright future for mutants. Li Jie. This powerful mutant compatriot, strong enough to create a world. He is simply a treasure bestowed upon them by God. Thinking about it carefully, before, they had always been at loggerheads with humans. They never jumped out of the ordinary person's mindset to think about problems as a transcendent race. Just as Li Jie said, mutants and humans are two different races. Powerful mutants are no different from gods to ordinary people. And as a race of gods, why should they think like ordinary people? It seems their hearts were ultimately bound by the world, which is why they never solved the plight of mutants. But fortunately, with the appearance of Li Jie, this high school boy directly provided an impeccable answer. A world belonging to mutants. This answer directly nullified all of humanity's checks and balances on mutants. In the time that followed, Li Jie took a group of people to experience other things, such as building houses, and also fishing. As for various monsters, Li Jie had no intention of taking them to kill for fun. Today, letting them enter his world was just to let them know that the world he designed could allow people to live well. It wasn't to say that they would live in his world from then on. A taste was enough, there was no need to understand everything clearly. Now, it's time to do some serious business. Professor, what do you think of the world I designed? Eric, are you satisfied with my world? Li Jie gathered everyone who was busy mining, fishing, and building houses in this world. He asked with a triumphant smile. Satisfied? Of course, I'm satisfied. Li Jie, is the world you're designing for mutants going to be like this too? Shadowcat, holding a fishing rod in one hand and a bucket full of fish in the other, answered first, contentedly. How could that be? This world was designed this way to meet my own needs, and it's also by my own power. If I designed such a world for mutants too, how could they have the motivation to develop? Wouldn't they all become people who just eat and wait to die? I don't want mutants to fail to develop anything even after human persecution is gone. What I hope to see is a civilization with mutant characteristics. Li Jie reined in his smile, looking at Shadowcat with a serious expression. Li Jie is right, we cannot rely on him to design everything perfectly. Our world, ultimately, needs to be built by ourselves. The professor stood beside Magneto, also looking very serious as he agreed with Li Jie's idea. Magneto looked at his lifelong rival and friend, smiling easily. From now on, they wouldn't need to worry about the future of mutants anymore. Cyclops, Storm, and Beast looked at Magneto's smiling face in surprise. In their impression, Magneto almost never smiled, he always had that serious and earnest expression. Only Mystique looked at Magneto with complex emotions, seeing his head full of white hair and his face full of wrinkles. Only she knew how difficult it had been for Magneto for the future of mutants. But fortunately, now everything was over, and hope had arrived. Mystique subconsciously looked at Li Jie and grinned. Professor, since none of you have any objections, I will design the world according to my own ideas. Li Jie observed the expressions of everyone present, confirming that no one had any more questions. Seeing them all nod, Li Jie decided to begin manifesting the world seed he had already conceived. Under the gaze of the professor and the others, Li Jie waved at the blocky sun in the sky. A red streak of light shot down from above, hovering directly over Li Jie's raised palm. Its familiar appearance made the few people from the academy recognize it immediately. It was red stone. However, the red stone was no longer the size of a sugar cube, but as large as a tesseract. This was still its size after consuming energy to manifest this world. After all, the energy possessed by a sun is no joke. The professor and the others quickly accepted Li Jie using red stone as the sun in his world. Because Li Jie had already told them that a complete red stone possessed the energy of a sun, making it reasonable to use it as one. And Magneto, Mystique, and Shadowcat, who were initially puzzled, quickly learned about the function of red stone from the professor and the others. They were shocked by the power of redstone and looked forward to Li Ji's next actions even more. Li Jie ignored their emotions and continued with his work. He guided the redstone's energy to condense in his other hand, and a fist-sized transparent crystal ball gradually materialized from nothingness. This crystal ball emitted a faint blue glow, the color of spatial energy in the Marvel Universe, and was also a crystal formed by Li Jie deliberately converting energy into spatial attribute energy. Through the faint glow of the spatial crystal ball, the professor and the others saw a tiny world floating within it. A miniature continent floated quietly inside the spatial crystal ball. A tiny red orb of light illuminated the continent. This spatial crystal ball, only the size of a fist, firmly captured the attention of the few people present, making them forget everything else and reluctant to look away. Everyone, this is the world I designed for the mutants, or rather, the world seed. Li Jie released his grip, allowing the spatial crystal ball to slowly drift past them one by one, giving them a clearer look. Inside this world, I allocated various terrains according to direction. The north is snow mountains and ice fields, the south is oceans and islands, the west is deserts and Gobi, the east is rainforests and swamps, and the central area is plains and rivers. As for the sun in the sky, that is the red stone I specifically left behind, which connects to the root of the universe. It will continuously expand the world's scope and strengthen the things within it. Li Jie introduced them to the status of the world seed inside the spatial crystal ball. Oh, right, because there are many things I haven't seen, I currently cannot materialize living beings. So, if you want to develop this world, you will need to find a way to acquire enough animals and plants. Seeing their expressions of admiration, Li Jie continued. Oh, Li Jie, you must be joking with us, right? Aren't the flowers, trees, pigs, cattle, and sheep in this world living beings? Was the beef we just ate fake too? Shadowcat looked at Li Jie with a face full of suspicion, pointing at the objects around them. The others also looked puzzled, glancing around before looking back at Li Jie. Kitty, that's just what you think. In reality, none of these things possess true life. The reason they grow and move is like pre-designed programs in a computer game, developing according to established rules. And the reason they have genuine functions corresponding to their identity is simply because I recorded their information and then used energy to truly replicate them. Therefore, the things inside this world are essentially my replication of real objects, combined with the rules I designed, which results in their current manifestation. Li Jie took out a piece of roasted beef from his backpack, pointed at its appealing caramelized brown color, took a bite, and slowly chewed, explaining unhurriedly. Professor and the others thought of the blocky objects they had seen before that all looked identical, and expressions of sudden realization appeared on their faces. Looking at everything around them now, they were even more astonished. They couldn't help but feel admiration for Li Jie, who had thought of using this method to solve the flaw of not being able to materialize life, thereby creating a beautiful world full of vitality. Such unconventional and ingenious ideas are not something just anyone can possess. Everyone, I will integrate this world seed into the space fissure of the Earth. As it grows and expands, it will become an existence that is two sides of the same coin as the Earth. Oh, and one more thing. As Li Jie spoke, he waved his hand, recalling the spatial crystal ball. He then used a finger on his other hand to tap it, drawing out an illusory spatial crystal ball. Releasing the spatial crystal ball, he let it float among the others, and Li Jie displayed the illusory spatial crystal ball before them. This is the key, or rather the mark, I specially designed for you to enter and exit the world. You can obtain it simply by guiding it with your consciousness. You just need to press it against your glabella, like an ability orb, just like this. With that, Li Jie grabbed the illusory crystal ball and pressed it directly onto his glabella. The illusory crystal ball immediately vanished into his glabella. Only those who have merged with this illusory crystal ball can freely enter and exit the world inside the crystal ball in areas where the corresponding space of the real world has been covered. For example, if the crystal ball world is integrated into the space fissure of the Earth in New York. Then, as the crystal ball world expands to cover the entire space corresponding to New York, anyone who has merged with this mark can enter and exit the crystal ball world in New York at any time using their mind. As he spoke about the function of this mark, Li Jie's face was full of triumphant smiles. This was his most satisfying design for the crystal ball world. Also, don't worry that once the crystal ball world is integrated into the space fissure, you won't be able to obtain the mark. This mark can be duplicated by your own energy and given to others. Professor and the others were deeply moved upon hearing how powerful the mark's function was. Although the crystal ball world needs to expand slowly for the mark's function to be fully realized, this does not diminish the mark's power. On the contrary, this further illustrates the mark's potent function, because the expansion range of the crystal ball world might not stop at Earth. What if its expansion reached the entire solar system? Doesn't that mean those who possess the mark will gain the ability to freely escape danger anywhere in the entire solar system? Furthermore, there is no limit to the number of people who can possess this mark. They immediately gathered around the crystal ball, tapping their fingers on it like Li Jie, using their consciousness to communicate with the crystal ball. One after another, illusory crystal balls were drawn out by them and impatiently pressed onto their glabella. As the mark integrated, they immediately felt a clear connection with the crystal ball, as if an invisible gateway could be opened between them at any time. Seeing that they had all integrated the mark, Li Jie took the crystal ball into his hand, deciding it was time to take them out of his world. Everyone, since there's nothing else, let's head back. I still need to integrate the crystal ball into the space fissure. Li Jie asked them to take out all the blocks they were carrying, as the backpack space they currently possessed only existed due to the rules within his world. They shouldn't be crushed by these blocks once they left, as they had collected quite a few blocks from digging and mining everywhere just now. After realizing that the existence of these backpacks was due to the rules within Li Jie's world, although reluctant, they still took out the blocks as requested by Li Jie, piling them into a small hill on the ground. No need to feel regret. You will each have 1 cubic meter of storage space. The storage space ability was integrated when you merged with the mark earlier. Consider this storage space of benefit for joining the crystal ball world. Li Jie figured that if storage space became widespread, many interesting things would surely happen. With a single thought from him, the group, who hadn't yet recovered from the surprise of the storage space, suddenly felt a wave of distortion and blurriness before their eyes. When their vision cleared once more, they had returned to the conference room. Their vision had just cleared after the distortion of space conversion. Sitting casually on a chair, Shadowcat couldn't help but start experimenting with the storage space ability Li Jie had mentioned. With just a slight perception, she clearly established a connection with a space in her consciousness. Upon closer inspection, the space wasn't large, just as Li Jie had said, it was at most the size of 1 cubic meter. The excited Shadowcat subconsciously wanted to put something into the space. Sometimes the hands react faster than the brain. Without thinking, she stored the chair beneath her butt into the storage space. By the time she realized what she had done, her butt had already made intimate contact with the ground. Ouch! My butt! Because Shadowcat's movements were too fast, everyone else hadn't even reacted before she had completed her actions. Their attention was immediately drawn to her. Kitty, are you alright? Storm was closest to Shadowcat and had clearly seen Shadowcat store the chair into the storage space. She immediately found it both amusing and speechless. Seeing the obviously missing chair, the others also realized what had happened. One by one, they all followed suit and tested their own storage spaces. Perhaps due to Shadowcat's example, the chairs in the conference room became their experimental subjects. Before long, only a single table remained in the entire conference room. Professor was the first to interrupt their actions, exchanging a look with Magneto, and simultaneously focusing his gaze on the crystal ball in Li Jie's hand. Li Jie, are you planning to directly merge the crystal ball world into the dimensional rift here? Although Professor was hesitant regarding the coexistence of mutants and humans, he was uncompromising when it came to matters concerning the future of mutants. Of course, Professor. The sooner it merges into the dimensional rift, the sooner this world can begin to expand, and it can also provide a safety guarantee for the Academy. There's one more question. What should we name this world? We can't keep calling it the Crystal Ball World, right? Li Jie gave Professor an affirmative answer while also posing a question. Cyclops and Beast exchanged glances. They had always followed Professor's arrangements, and now, after remaining silent for so long, both of them looked directly at Professor. Storm shared the same thought. Although Shadowcat looked eager to try and wanted to give the world a nice-sounding name. But seeing the expressions of the others, she could only choose to remain silent. And what about Mystique? She was looking at Li Jie with a thoughtful expression, not paying attention to the matter of the world's name. Charles, you name our world. Magneto was a pragmatic person, and he directly gave the naming opportunity to Professor. Seeing everyone waiting for his answer, Professor did not decline. After a brief thought, he spoke. Krakoa. This world will become the holy land of mutants. Its mystery and power will bring new hope to mutants. Magneto nodded in agreement. This world was indeed the holy land of mutants. Charles, you are right. This world is the hope of the mutants. Li Jie hadn't expected that even a world designed and created by him would ultimately be named Krakoa by Professor. Was this name destined to belong to the mutant nation? But he didn't care about these details. Li Jie, what are you thinking about? Is there a problem with the name Professor chose? Shadowcat, rubbing her butt, approached Li Jie at this moment. Nothing, I just think this name truly matches this world. Of course, Li Jie wouldn't tell her about the origin of the name Krakoa and its connection to mutants, he just found a random excuse to placate her. Since everyone has no further questions, I will now merge Krakoa directly into the dimensional rift here. After looking at the few people who had remained silent, Li Jie focused his gaze on Professor and Magneto. Professor and the others naturally had no objections and signaled that he could begin. When designing the spatial backpack within his world, Li Jie had already mastered the use of spatial abilities. However, since he was now opening a dimensional rift in the real world and integrating a world seed, even Li Jie wasn't sure what would happen. Nevertheless, he was confident that he could protect everyone no matter what occurred. But to minimize accidents, Li Jie still had everyone go to the underground training ground, which was sufficiently sturdy. At the training ground, they also saw Phoenix's sister and Wolverine. The existence of Dark Phoenix shocked Magneto, Mystique, and Shadowcat alike. Professor and the others had hidden Dark Phoenix very well, as her existence was an incredible miracle for the Academy. But now that mutants even had their own exclusive world, there was nothing left to hide about her existence. It is worth mentioning that Dark Phoenix now possessed a true physical body, no longer an energy body. It seemed Phoenix and Wolverine were now much more at ease regarding her. Wolverine and Magneto were still at odds as always, while Mystique and Shadowcat gathered around Phoenix and Dark Phoenix, examining them. The fact that Professor could stand only surprised them for a moment, especially since Li Jie, a person who represented miracles in their eyes, was right there. Their biggest confusion was why Magneto and Mystique were brought down here. Cyclops and the other two briefly explained the situation to them, informing them about Krakoa. After everyone had calmed down, Li Jie asked them to step back, standing alone in the center of the training ground. Li Jie held the crystal ball in his left hand, clenched his right hand into a fist, and directly smashed it onto the space in front of him. Crack! Crack! As a sound like shattering glass echoed, Professor and the others clearly saw strange cracks appearing one after another in the space in front of Li Jie. After the cracks appeared, the surrounding air began to fluctuate violently, whistling toward the direction of the cracks. Li Jie continued his actions, inserting his right hand directly into the spatial crack under the horrified gaze of Professor and the others. With a twist to the side, Li Jie took a glass-like object, breaking it off like a piece of cookie, and held it in his hand. The expressions of the people on the edge of the training ground became solemn. Even without any explanation, they could see exactly what Li Jie had done. He had ripped off a spatial shard with his bare hands. A clear void appeared in the space in front of Li Jie, revealing the chaotic spatial turbulence within. Energy beams of indescribable colors darted chaotically within the void, and a powerful suction instantly erupted, attempting to swallow Li Jie and everything around him. But Li Jie was clearly unaffected. All the forces attempting to act upon him were converted into energy by his energy absorption ability and stored in the dimensional world. Thanks for watching.